If you need to continue conversing, you could please step outside.
For item 1?
I am Councilmember Jose Huizar, Chair of the Energy and Environment Committee. I've been joined by my colleagues, Councilmember Zine and Councilmember Koretz. We have two items on the agenda today. One deals with reusable bags, which is item number 1. The second is a presentation by the Department of Water and Power on their preliminary budget. We will take these items in reverse order and take up the Department of Water and Power budget first. So with that, let us begin. But before we begin, I do want to note that we've been advised that Councilmember Alarcon will be joining us shortly. He is at another committee meeting. So with that, if our clerk could please, or someone read into our record item number 2, please.
Certainly. Item number 2, Board of Water and Power Commissioners report relative to the preliminary fiscal year 2012-2013 Department of Water and Power proposed budget. The staff. General Manager Ron Nichols from Department of Water and Power, Phil Lieber, CFO, and staff.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you. We're going to provide a...
Can you please state your name?
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's Ron Nichols.
We all know you, but
That's okay. Ron Nichols, General Manager, Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. Pleased to be here this afternoon. We are presenting today what is a preliminary budget, and just as a reminder to the committee, this is a new process for us all with regard to measures passed last year in the city election last March. Now provides for the department to get more in sync with the budget filings of the rest of the city, and therefore we provide this preliminary budget, which has been reviewed by our board and submitted as a preliminary budget to this committee for your review, and to the CLA and CAO, so you can get this information more timely with your consideration of the rest of the city's budget. And obviously, as part of this discussion, I want to make sure it's clear. Last January, we had submitted as an informational item to the Board of Water and Power Commissioners a budget that would be achievable, or I should say more likely appropriately required, if we had no rate increase whatsoever. We laid that out for our commission. We presented that and had presented some of the serious problems that were associated with that if we had to go forward with a continuation of no increase. And we wanted that as an information benchmark. What you have here today, you'll see, is a recommended budget, preliminary budget, that does indeed reflect some rate adjustments in this upcoming fiscal year. And some of the things that are really key to drivers of this budget, and some of the things you're going to be seeing more about from the department as we move forward in our planning processes, is that we are, now that next year is the end of our first century of performance as a water and a power utility, we're now looking at what is our next century that starts next year. And it is a major transformation of both the power and the water side as we work for improving our reliability, fixing our aged system, still maintaining competitive rates while we meet regulatory mandates, and a major change in our water system and our power system. Getting into some of those key areas, key programs that drive our budget going forward this year, and you'll see as we talk about future planning in the future, our key programs are power supply replacement program. The biggest of that, piece of that, is our replacement of our coastal power plants necessary to accommodate that elimination of once-through ocean cooling. You might recall several members of this committee and the full council had discussion of that last year when we were going through that process. Another piece of that is our meeting our mandates for getting up to 33% renewable energy, now a state law, and in the near term, over the next 2 years, maintaining 20% renewable energy. And then something that really doesn't affect us in the next year of this budget, but will be a part of our costs going forward, is our transition out of coal. That's in this last year, it gives you an indication on here. For each of these key programs, the current fiscal year is about $691 million. That goes up to about up to $716 million to meet those requirements in this next fiscal year. We also have a major component on a multiple year basis of our power reliability program to help fix some underinvestment in the past in our cables, our poles, our cross arms and transformers. We had cut that budget back significantly last year as part of our budget cuts, and now we're looking to take that up to about $802 million in this fiscal year. Frankly, that's less than we believe we should be doing, but we're trying to maintain control over that budget wherever we can, recognizing where we are in the economic times that we're at. And the final thing, last summer, as we were going through our rate process last summer, we had a lot of interaction with our customers. We had some 35 public workshops, as well as some meetings before full council and this committee, where we talked about investments that we need to make, and also some investments by law that we're required to make in the areas of energy efficiency and customer solar programs. And we heard loud and clear from them that they are very interested in having investments to get some control over their costs and reduce their costs. Part of that is represented in here's what we call our customer opportunities, for them to be able to co-invest with us with energy efficiency, as well as our customer installed solar programs. And that's a jump here from $135 million last year up to $156 million all in this budget. Just as a quick aside, wanted to give an overview of the power costs. Just what is the breakout? It's about $3.15 billion a year is our total dollars. We call it a revenue requirement, considered a total kind of all-in cash budget, if you will, that we need to collect from our customers to pay the cost of running the power system. The breakout of this, as you can see in here, shows that the biggest slice is purchase power and fuel. Our costs of labor here, all in, it's fairly similar between water and power. It's about the order of 25% of our total cost. Very different from the city, where non-proprietaries are looking more about 90+% of total cost being labor. Labor is a much smaller piece of our total cost. Our interest and depreciation here basically is payment for our past capital contributions that we've done in the project. And then we have the city transfer. The net income is really kind of is cash that's then applied to the next year's capital programs. I'd like to turn it over now to Phil Leiber, our CFO, to talk a little bit about the rate implications that are inherent in the overall budget numbers that you've seen.
So the programs that Mr. Nichols just talked about, you'll notice the spending was going up from the current year to next year. And while we've done everything we can to tighten our belt to try to continue our essential programs without rate increases, there comes a point where we can't make these additional investments without having some rate adjustments. And it's important to recall that it has been a fair amount of time since our rates have been adjusted. It's been 3 years since our base rates have been adjusted, and it's been 2 years since our energy cost adjustment factor has been adjusted. And we really can't be in a position to deficit spend any more than we have. We've already got under collections in certain of our key accounts. So to move forward on these programs, we will require some rate adjustments over the next couple of years. In terms of what we're proposing for power system rates, on a system average basis, you can see kind of in the middle of the screen, we would be proposing for this upcoming year a 4.6% rate adjustment. That equates to about 0.6 cents on the system average rate. That will vary by customer class. We have residential and small commercial customers on the right-hand side of this slide. The percentage increase that each type of customer will pay varies depending on their consumption patterns, but for a typical residential customer, about half of our customer base falls into this is about a 2% increase, about $1.35 a month. For a residential customer that uses twice as much power, the increase is higher. It's about 6%. And for a small commercial customer, it's about 4.3%. One important point that I need to make here is this does assume a rate increase effective July 1st. We're looking at the timing for all of this. We have the ratepayer advocate on board, and we don't know. In fact, it's quite unlikely we're in a position to actually have those rate increases go into effect July 1st. But for each month of delay, there is a corresponding increase. Right now, we'd be targeting an August 1st effective date, and that would mean about a 5.2% increase, because we have to collect the same amount of dollars over fewer months in the year. In terms of the impact on commercial customers, the increase ranges from about 4.6% for our very largest customers to about 4.9% for medium commercial customers. And we talked about the power system. We also have some changes happening in the water system. We have 3 key programs on the water side, just like we do in power. In terms of local water supply, the intent of this program is to wean our reliance from increasingly expensive and volatile imported water from the Metropolitan Water District. Over the coming decades, we'd like to reduce our reliance on that source of water by about half. And the only way that's going to happen is if we start making investments now in enhancing our local water supply capacity. And we have 4 programs there, making greater use of recycled water for particular purposes, capturing stormwater and applying it back into the aquifers, customer conservation programs, and groundwater cleanup and management. We have a source of water in the San Fernando Valley, but unfortunately it's increasingly suffering from contamination that unless that water is remediated, we can't make full use of that supply. So we need to begin making investments there. So we're doubling our investment in this important program from about $70 million to nearly $140 million in the upcoming year. In terms of safe drinking water program, you'll recall we just had an increase in our water quality adjustment factor, increased the cap by 35 cents. That's going to fund this important work in terms of regulatory compliance, covering uncovered reservoirs, and replacing aging trunk lines. And just like the power system, we have a very aging system. As you know from the news stories yesterday, we had significant breaks, and that's because this system was not intended to be used for as long as it has without replacement. We are at about a 320-year replacement cycle, and that's really longer than it needs to be. So we need to begin replacing this aging infrastructure, or otherwise continue to suffer from unexpected outages. So just like in the power system, we have a pie chart of our costs here, and as Mr. Nichols had indicated, labor is a relatively small portion of the overall budget. It's about 25%. And just like fuel and purchased power was the largest component on the power side, purchased water is the single largest component in this budget. And one of the things, the rate increases I'm going to talk about here don't include is the effect of potentially significantly higher purchased water costs next year, because we're coming off of a very good water year, looking to a very dry year that's going to increase our reliance on met water next year. So we are proposing some very modest increases in water rates next year. It's about 0.5% from the rates that are currently in effect today. It too varies a little bit by type of customer. For the typical residential customer using about 1,200 cubic feet per month, we're looking at about a 1% increase. High-use single-family residential, you'll see, actually turns out to be a smaller increase. That wasn't our intent. That's just the way the existing rate structure works, where there's a Tier 1 and a Tier 2. Some of the pass-through charges don't get applied to Tier 2. That's something we're going to be correcting next year when we bring a revised ordinance to you, but that's the effect of the rate structure we have in place today. And just to close our comments on the budget, this is by no means a wish list budget. We're not accomplishing everything that we think could or should be done. We are increasing our investments in the reliability components of both water and power, but it's certainly far from everything it could and should be. The energy efficiency program, we're similarly increasing our investments there. But by some measures, LA could be doing a lot more. And over time, we're going to continue to increase funding in that area. We do have critical systems and facilities that stand to be replaced, computer systems and physical infrastructure. And just an example of that is our financial infrastructure. We've got financial systems that are 20 to 30 years old that will have to be replaced in the coming years. So that doesn't all get accomplished in the next year.
Overall, this budget allows us to comply with regulatory mandates. So much of what we're doing, on the order of 2/3 or more of the items that we are looking to increase, are regulatory-driven mandates that are at principally the state and in few places at the federal level. It does replace, but not at a pace that we would like to be at, our aging infrastructure in both the power and the water side. We do provide some conservation opportunities for power and water. In each case, there are some mandated programs that require us to do those. The levels at which we do those have a little bit of flexibility on a year-to-year basis, and we've been trying to ramp up from what we were, because what we've done, unfortunately, as we've been in a situation to have to kind of defer rates, one of the things that's taken some of the brunt of that is both our contributions to our energy efficiency programs and our contributions to our water conservation programs, and we believe we need to turn that the other direction, and this starts in that direction. Again, not as much as we would like, but we believe in the right direction. And so as a result, this gives opportunities for customers to take some control of their energy use and their water use at a higher degree, where we can co-invest with them on that. It's a major portion of our strategy going forward to try to work better with our customers in that regard. So I'd like to leave more time now for your questions here. I want to make clear, we brought up the rate issue only because we felt it important for you to recognize and make very clear that we're providing a preliminary budget here and what that is predicated upon. Ultimately, we will be going forward. We just presented to our board yesterday a 2-year rate plan, not for their approval, but informational, and we're starting community meetings and workshops on that. We'll be back to both this committee and the council later on this year, after the ratepayer advocate has been able to review and provide his independent advice on that. To the extent that through that process there is some modification to the rates, we would have to find ways to modify the budget to come in line with that. But so this is a placeholder budget at this point in time.
Okay. Thank you very much for that presentation. Through our Measure J process now, it requires that you provide a preliminary budget, and you anticipate you will come back May 31st or June 31st with your final budget for presentation?
May,
right? May 31st. Okay. And so you'll be back May 31st, and it's an ongoing process, so there's possibilities of adjustments. Now, when will we as a council review the proposed rate increases? When do you anticipate bringing those before the committee?
We are working right now with ratepayer advocate on the timing for as he and his office ramps up and gets some additional capability. Our desire would be that we would be back to you, that he would have his analysis done, and we would be to you by the end of June, before the council summer recess. We're talking about that right now as to whether that's achievable. And that would be necessary if we're going to get the August 1 effective date that Mr. Liber indicated.
In the event that the council decides to do something different other than that, what you propose in your rate increase, it will affect your budget that you presented by May 31st. How would you propose fixing that, or what would happen in that event?
Well, we have laid out our plans as possible here to try to delay the ramp up of some of these. There are a number of programs in here that we are increasing for both regulatory mandates and then some of the things that we're trying to get done in energy efficiency and in water conservation, for example. We will likely defer a little bit of those activities for the ramp up until there is greater certainty with regard to the rate situation on that. And so we will, we'll obviously need to meter our expenditures around that and not overcommit until such time there's clarity on that.
Okay. Thank you. Well, colleagues, we have also with us Fred Pickle, the ratepayer advocate. I'm going to ask him to come up and make a brief presentation, but as you know, this is not only speaking about the proposed rate increase, which is incorporated in the preliminary budget, but we could ask questions on the full budget. But before we do that, I'd like to hear from Fred Pickle, our ratepayer advocate. Welcome.
Thank you.
So you've seen the preliminary budget. It was proposed yesterday, I believe, at the commission. Any initial discussions you might want to share publicly with the committee?
This is Dr. Fred Pickle, Office of Ratepayer Advocate. I've seen their PowerPoint presentation on the rate proposal. I have not seen the full documentation behind the rate proposal. So my detailed review can start when I get that step. Based on receiving that material the middle of this month, I've been talking with outside consulting about, in particular PA Consulting, about supporting that effort and me drawing on prior work that they've done that would allow this to be accelerated in this instance. At this point, they think they could produce something in a 45 to 60-day period, and I would, assuming I am working in parallel with them, that means we might be able to produce something by the middle of June and be in a position to start doing workshops jointly with DWP.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from my colleagues on any of the matters before us, budget?
Well, I have a
Mr. Zine?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The city transfer 8%.
Yes.
If that was adjusted, how would this affect the rates?
It would not affect the rates for this coming fiscal year because it's applied as 8% of the prior fiscal year's audited amount. So in other words, it's that the amount that we have in the budget there for that, which is roughly about $250 million, is based on our estimate for what the year that we're just now going into the final quarter of. So it would not affect this year. It would affect a subsequent year's budget. So it's always done, it's done retroactive.
Okay. And Dr. Pickle, you haven't had a chance to review all that's being presented to us. That's the concern I have, is being an advocate for your position before we consider any kind of increases. There should be the venting of all of them. And I understand you want to go in July. You won't have that done by then. And this will be the second increase without your stamp of approval. That's a concern to me, and I'm sure the ratepayers, because that's what you're there for.
The first increase occurred or was voted before I was on board.
I think it was the day after you got confirmed. There was something the day after you got confirmed we voted on.
I was not employed until after the second reading.
Okay.
The increase that was proposed yesterday, not the budget, but the rate increase proposal, the full package of materials hasn't been released yet by DWP.
Were you finding cooperation with DWP in the positions you have?
It's
to be
been
the
very
ratepayer
good.
advocate?
Yes,
So they're not holding anything back from you?
not that I'm aware of.
Because the voters supported that position and funded that position to have a separate objective oversight before any rates take place. And that's a concern I have, is that that was a voter mandated position, and we seem to be bypassing that, which is a concern. And I understand what the water and power needs. We've got pipes breaking, we've got an infrastructure that's aging, no one questions that, and we need to keep it up. So there seems to be a gap between what we need from you with what's being proposed as far as rate increases, which affect the consumers, business, et cetera.
Councilmember Zine, if I could respond to that, that is not the intent. We are, the reason that I indicated that our timeline was a target is that we are indeed talking about what amount of time he needs, resources that the ratepayer advocate's going to require so that they can be familiar with that. One of the things that in addition to help accommodate that is we're well aware that Dr. Pickle is well versed in the power side and is, no one is a master of all, and a little less steeped in the water utility business. We are proposing to defer by a few months the consideration of water rates because we need to get that done by the end of this calendar year so that we can make the commitments and plans we need to get the budget going for the subsequent fiscal year. So this way he can focus all of his area in the area where he has the most experience and insight on the power side. We're working through, because clearly our board is not going to act until there's a report from the ratepayer advocate, and we fully would anticipate that the council will have the benefit of his analysis too. So we're working through to get hand in glove on our time schedule so that's accomplished.
Okay, because we need to be candid with the voters in support of this position. Also, solar for business and homes. How does the solar impact any of these? Because we talked about that before, the solar, a lot of businesses are going solar. Westfield, for example, a number of the schools are going solar, public and private. How does this impact when they go solar?
In terms of our budget, it's built into our budget, and there's two components of that. The one that's active right now is our solar incentive program, and that's included as part of that renewable energy piece in the back up here. When we're looking at the power supply replacement program, the renewable energy piece is a piece of that $716 million. Solar incentive program is a slice of that.
Of the renewable energy.
Of the renewable energy piece. It's a very small, relatively small slice of that, budgeted for, consistent with the requirements under Senate Bill 1. In fact, actually, we're a bit ahead of Senate Bill 1 in doing more per year than is obligated under that program, but we're doing it in a manner that's actually reducing the cost to our customers who pay our rates by financing our rebate payments. And the rebate goes to the customers to help lower the overall cost of their installed solar.
And then while the state and the federal government pass mandates, they don't pass any funding. That's up to us to figure out how we're going to pay for it.
That is correct.
So they can pass all the laws in the world, which they keep on doing, and put the onus on you and your department and the taxpayers to fund what they wish to impose upon us.
And here's the one benefit, the silver lining out of this is that we are continuing to see a falling price of photovoltaic panels each year. And so each year the cost of providing that same amount of solar with each new additional solar unit that our customers put on is going down.
Okay, there's some major leaps when it comes to, one of them that stood out was up to 300, from 71 to 138, 275. I mean, you're talking major increases. That was the one on the water, 71 million to 138 million.
It is a significant overall part of the budget. Now, that's a combination of both operating and maintenance costs. Those are just expenses that hit our budget in that year, and part of that is our capital costs, which of course is spread out much as a mortgage would be. And this is particularly important investment for us. We, again, as I say, we cut back. If you were to go back a year, back to 2010-11, you would find that $71 million there was actually higher in a prior year. We cut back many of our programs for what we call local water supply. And this current year that we're seeing right now is a perfect example of why these are prudent investments to do, not only some of these items that are mandated, but things that are important to get done. We've just gone off a year where we had last year, where we had about 150% of normal snowpack up in the Eastern Sierra, not to mention more rain down here in LA, during which time people weren't watering their lawns, etc. We're now, well, just a flip of that. We're now looking right now, our latest snowpack looks like we're well under 50% of average. It's almost, I think, an unprecedented swing. And as a result, the difference between that is that we bought significantly less water from Metropolitan Water District last year. In fact, our water rates were going down every single quarter last year. Our water rates, even after the adjustment that we just did in January, are 6% below where they were the year before. Now we turn around and we're looking at having to buy much more than we normally do. We typically, on average, buy about a little over 50% of our water from MWD. We're going to be well over that this year. We're still hoping for some residual late spring snows up here, but this program, year after year, is intended to fund money into getting us less reliant on that imported water from MWD by being able to do even better on conservation than we've done, and our customers have done a very good job of that, to do better on that, to do more on stormwater capture, to do more on recycled water, and to clean up the aquifer in the San Fernando Valley, to cut back on the contamination. So not only can we use the groundwater there, to which we have some rights, but also to be able to put that stormwater and recycled water in there as basically our local reservoir for water. By making these investments now, the amount of our increase in water rates for that is, despite that number looking like it's very large, is a very small increase in the overall water rate. It pays huge benefits in years to come. And as we talk a little bit more, when we get into the full rate discussion, we're really just talking about the budget and the 1 year here. When we'll be before you, we're talking about the whole rate program. We'll be able to look on this on more of a multiple year basis and be able to discuss that more fully with you.
Well, I do know that the consumers are concerned about the rates. When you look at the price of gasoline, where it goes up to $4.35, $4.40, then it comes down to $4.19 or $4.21, it's still way over $4. And with this, when we look at the impact on business, we look at the impact on the consumer, it's a major hit. And obviously, we have an aging system. I mean, it's going to continue to deteriorate.
Right.
You're going to continue to have broken pipes and inconvenience people. And it'd be nice if we could have the magic wand and fix it all overnight, but it's not going to happen. So these are tough pills to swallow, to be honest with you. But at least if we have Dr. Pickle's reports on the water and the power side, at least the people can be told. And if he doesn't agree with you, if he comes back as ratepayer advocate and says, you know what, this 138 should be 82, then you're going to have a fight with him. And then we're going to rally behind him and say, Dr. Pickle, you're right. You're going to save the consumers a lot of money. So, I mean, I can see it coming because he can't be a rubber stamp. He's going to have to be independent in his analysis, and we'll see how that pans out. But it's definitely going to hit the people in the pocketbook. I don't think there's any question about that, just to what degree it's going to hit.
Well, and we're very mindful of that, and that's why we've been cutting costs wherever we can as well.
Okay. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Mr. Koretz?
Yeah, a few questions. So one, I like what I see in terms of putting funding into conservation and efficiency and what we're doing with the local water supply. The only thing you didn't talk about, and I don't know whether it's already been implemented or not being implemented, there have been a number of inventions that allow for conservation and watering that would apply to not customer conservation but city conservation. Equipment that would allow you to reduce 15, 20, 25% of your watering by knowing when to water and how much in some of our parks, etc. Where do we stand on that? Have we already implemented those? Are we looking at implementing them in the future? Do we need to have something in that direction in this budget or in a future budget?
We have been implementing those. We've been working with Rec and Parks on doing that on city parklands and facilities. We're, in fact, right now at present working with the city on the refurbishment of the City Hall lawn to do just that as part of that. So that will be a more efficient use of water as well as more efficient water plantings for water conservation there as well. We do have some monies in here for that, and we're always open to further discussions with respect to how we can do that. And not just on the use of, more efficient use of water, but in addition, we had deferred some dozen small recycled water programs last year, or I should say basically this current year, for budget reasons. Some of those that we're proposing to bring back in here do address some of the city lands and properties to be able to use recycled water to displace the use of potable water in those locations, and at the same time make certain that we're using that water more efficiently as well. So not to say that there isn't more that can be done, and certainly are open to having discussions about how that can be ramped up and what cost implications that might have for rates.
I think that would be great, because our reuse of recycled water now is much less than it should be, and there's a lot to be gained.
I would agree with you.
As far as on the energy side, it's recommended that we spend $88 million for energy efficiency, I believe. How close does that get us to the city's 2020 goals and the state's 2020 goals?
That's a ramp up from where we were. It's about a 20-some-odd% ramp up from where we were last year, and it gets us up to something along the order of 0.6, 0.7% per year incremental. We need to get more at about 1 to 1.25% incremental, which we are proposing to do in subsequent years. We literally can't ramp up fast enough to go much significantly beyond the amount that we're talking about right here, just by virtue of the time that it takes to roll out the programs. We literally have had reduction in staff that we haven't backfilled for budget reasons and things that we need to get people back on board and ramp up. So in short to the point, we're not where we want to be. It's moving us closer to where we want to be, but we have plans that would increase that by another 20 or 30% each year for the next several years as part of our long-term plan, and we'll be discussing that more when we get into full rate discussions.
So do we think we get to our 2020 goals by 2020?
Well, yes and no, and here's one of the issues around that. Our board adopted an 8.6%, kind of an odd number, I know, by 2020 in terms of the things that, quote, count for programs. We will, with that, get well better than an incremental 10% reduction and a number of other measures, so a 10% energy conservation by 2020, but not all of the components by which we get done count in the parlance as we understand it right now, with what the Energy Commission is talking about in their review of what counts and doesn't count. It's an ongoing discussion we will have with them. It's an ongoing discussion that we're actually going to have with our commission and with council as to what are the appropriate long-term levels. Key thing is right now we're at least reversing the direction. We've been going down. Energy efficiency has been the whipsaw of our budget process for the last few years. We go forward, we lay out a program, we don't get a rate adjustment, we didn't pass through the ECAF adjustments for various understandable reasons, and what has gotten chopped in some of that has been our energy efficiency, because there's no single year obligation by law. That's the wrong thing to do. And so we want to turn that around and start working back up. This is about as quick as we can do it right now, and we'll be ramping it up above and beyond that, and we'll be happy to have some more discussions about the extent to which we should ramp up even more so.
And are we going to have an independent evaluation program of our energy conservation measures so that we can be sure we can rely on the savings and accomplishments?
We are. In fact, right now we're preparing a request for proposals for an independent measurement and verification consultant to evaluate our programs to make certain that it's not just us speaking to what the savings are, but an independent party reviewing that. Independent from Dr. Pickle. And I'm sure Mr. Pickle will be interested in reviewing the results of that as well.
And how are we doing on coal? Based on what we've budgeted, are we moving towards our goals of getting beyond coal at the time that we would hope?
We are, and in fact, as we've discussed lately, but probably not a lot before this committee, We have, by law, we need to be out of no longer taking power from our Navajo coal project in Arizona, of which we are a 21% owner of a 2,250 megawatt 3-unit coal plant, owned by all other owners being non-California entities. By law, we would need to be out by the end of 2019. Our plans right now are actually to be out by 2015 to do that, because we believe that it is actually in the best interest. Not only is it the best environmental interest, we actually believe it's in the best interest of our customers who pay our rates in terms of the costs, and you'll be hearing more about our plans. That doesn't really have a direct impact on this upcoming fiscal year budget, other than the fact that our increases in energy efficiency and our ramp up on renewable energy is a start towards the replacement of a portion of that power that is being produced by coal. So as we ramp up on that and we get out of coal, we're balancing out our resources in a more environmentally appropriate way.
And one last question on the same subject. I know Southern California Edison just recently announced that it's divesting from its remaining coal plant by the end of the year, and I think that was to avoid something like $700 million in costs of implementing the Clean Air Act. Are we under those same obligations, and are we going to have to face those kinds of increases while we still hold on to our coal plants?
The requirements with respect to their plant and our plant are different. The timing and the rules are different, and they apply to different issues. The issue with respect to the Navajo generating station is not a health-related standard. It's a standard yet to be applied, by the way. It's been discussed but not applied by the Environmental Protection Agency. Related to the contribution of regional haze to the Grand Canyon and other areas surrounding the Navajo plant. And we do anticipate there will be some future requirements for reducing emissions that are not right now, and it's separate and distinct from that which applies to the Edison plant.
And we hope, I take it, that we no longer have an ownership interest in that plant by the time that's implemented.
That would be our preference.
Thank you.
Thank you. I know this is the preliminary presentation, and I have a number of questions as well, but in the interest of time, I will just ask a couple of questions and get more detail when we get back. On your, do you have a strategic plan for implementing the infrastructure build? You're asking for increased funding for infrastructure, et cetera. Do you actually have a strategic plan in place, or how would you go about this?
On the water side, we have...
On the power side.
Okay, on the power side, we have an integrated resource plan. And the integrated resource plan lays out a long-term, 20-plus year period of time of what are our requirements, what are the regulatory mandates, what are our alternatives out there, what do different fuel costs look like going out there. You do some sensitivity analyses around that. We did a very detailed review of that and a lot of public workshops on that 2010, wrapping up early 2011. We just did an update of that we completed at the end of calendar year 2011, and we've just embarked upon a renewed effort on that again in 2012. Our plan for doing that is to do every other year, do a very detailed long-term assessment, and then kind of a shorter-term true-up in between. So we have that, we've done that, we've presented that, and we're now updating that even further to reflect kind of current technology and cost numbers. Okay,
and I would like to see a more in-depth discussion of that as we talk more about the proposed increase. As the constituents or our consumers ask, where's this money going, we want to be able to articulate how that plan is, how does it impact them, service reliability, et cetera. We want to make sure it's equitable as well. How are you addressing this? Is it through what's the most oldest infrastructure, or where do you have the most problems, et cetera? What is the criteria you use to address this? We could always use more money, but how are you distributing these funds that you will now be asked, the additional funds that we're asking for? So we'll hold that for the discussion on the increase. And on the renewables, Mr. Carras asked some very good questions there that, as we move in that direction, and the proposed increase, we want to hear more about your portfolio of renewables, what type you're using, wind, solar, et cetera, and if that makes sense. We want to have a good sense if the direction, these are long-term investments, and whatever we're doing now, we want to make sure that we're addressing it upfront in a way that makes sense, but we'll follow up with those types of discussions.
Very good.
And finally, on energy efficiency, you're increasing your budget in that area, but we could always do more, as you noted. But this is an area, I think, when our consumers are being asked to pay for more for energy. Our consumers want to be more efficient, but yet they don't know how or don't have the resources. Why can't we do more in this budget for energy efficiency?
Well, we have done more than we have had in this current year in this budget. And I totally agree with the concerns that have been registered by our customers on this. One of the problems that you have as a customer trying to deal with this is that, and a very appropriately leveled criticism of the department is, well, 1 month you're telling me these are your energy efficiency programs, and I call up, I get interested in that, and I spend some time to get up to speed on it, then the next month they're gone. And part of it's been gone over our budget issues, just to be clear on that. We would like to get a much clearer multi-year plan on here's what we're looking to do. We're going to be there for you. We want to hear what works for you. We have spent a lot of time of outreach with our customers to get ideas of what works for them. We want to do more of that. So it's two issues. It's planning out programs and getting the information out there better so they understand it. Having those programs then be there by the time they've learned enough about it, budgeted for it, because it typically is a co-investment program, other than a couple of programs that we have for our low-income customers where we fund 100%.
Yeah.
And then we need to have staffing levels internally to administer these programs, to do what we call intake, that is working with our customers to get them in, get the applications in, and get things moving, and then for our own forces who do some of the direct install themselves on that. So unfortunately, those things don't happen quickly, and we can't go ahead of the budget to get that done.
Okay. I think we are at a interesting time where we could get a more comprehensive plan on energy efficiency, multi-year, as you mentioned, and really don't have, I don't know if you call them fly-by-night programs, but something that's going to be sturdy, long-term, that affects not only energy efficiency, but jobs, et cetera, that are long-lasting. I think we get more creative in that area, and that's something that if we could look at this budget as it goes forward, and I'll have some more discussions with you and your staff about this, that how we could continue to expand this area, and it's really...
I would be pleased to do that and work with you on that.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments? Staff? Okay, well, that concludes this item. We have two public speakers, and then we will move on to the next item. Our first public speaker is Dr. Tom Williams.
Dr. Tom Williams, LA 32 Neighborhood Council, also Northeast LA Coalition. As a basic element, this is a big company that we're talking about. Do they have a strategic plan of what the policies are from the Board of Water and Power? They studied it for over 2 years, and nothing came out of it. Therefore, your budget is based upon no policy statement. When do we get off coal? How many years replacement? A 300-year plus replacement cycle on water pipes, flanges, valves, pumping stations? 300 years. But depreciation is taken off at 14%, which sounds a little strange in my old bookkeeping. There's also a matter that basically, where's the benchmarks for our performance? I don't mind paying a lot of money. That is, I pay half as much as I do to the other side of the DWP bill.
Thank you. Mr. Nichols, as the public, as the commenter was speaking, I came across an article where there was a shutdown of IPP, a Utah plant where we get some of our power from. I read in the article that according to the report, it is only running at half capacity, and it's having to buy additional short-term power to cover this loss of generation. Would that impact us in any way in terms of our budget and how much we will pay for our power?
That does not impact next year's budget. We did have a failure of a generator stator on one of the units, and it's under repair right now.
Okay.
And in the meantime, we are purchasing power from the market to make up where we need to, where we can't make it up with our other plants.
It's not affecting our budget?
It's come at a time not only helpful that it's been in the spring and the late winter period when our energy requirements are lower, and in addition, we've had lower natural gas prices that have lower market prices in the short term. So we've had to replace that energy. The overall price has not been significant, and any impact it has on the current year budget will not have any impact on the budget we just talked about for the next fiscal year.
Okay, thank you. Our next speaker is DD Audit.
Thank you. My name is Dee Odette. I'm from Venice. I attended the Groundwater University put on by NASA and EPA over in the Simi Valley and at the west end of the San Fernando Valley. And I bring this to you as an environmental concern. I spent a year studying this. They make no provision for the storm water runoff. Yet we know that some tests found radionucleotides in the valley. Mr. Nichols just testified of the contamination of our groundwater in the San Fernando Valley. That's where we get our water from. This is terribly important. And I think that you folks could call attention to this. Many of the tests that were performed in the valley were done for other purposes and not for looking for these things from the Santa Susana Field Lab. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will take a look at that.
And but you have my material, correct?
We have it, yes. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yes. Next item, please.
Mr. Chair, actually, on this item, would you like to recommend note and file for this matter?
No and file, please, without
Okay.
objection.
They will, under the Charter Measure J, they'll submit a new updated preliminary budget by May.
And in terms of procedure, does the full council get the same presentation of the preliminary budget, or do we wait till for the next budget?
This is the first time we've run through this since this amendment was approved last year. It really depends on, we cast this, so, it would be appropriate, if you like, to forward this to council so they get a taste, or if you prefer, to provide the full scope in about a month, 2 months, we could approach it that way.
Well, I think the intent is for the full council to hear it, so we could, our recommendation is note and file, but if we could forward it to the full council.
Certainly.
Sure.
So we'll go ahead and do that. All right.
Next item, please.
Item number 1 relates to the CAO report and Bureau of Sanitation reports relative to adoption of policy to ban single-use bags in the city of Los Angeles. We have staff from the CAO, Emilio Rodriguez, and staff from the Bureau of Sanitation, General Manager Ricky Zaldivar.
You go first.
Thank you and welcome. And before us is both a CAO report and a Bureau of Sanitation report. This item has been before this committee, not necessarily with the same composition of council members, but prior to this, it was in council, and we asked at that time to bring it back to committee so that the CAO could look at this item and report back on fiscal impacts and other impacts, and to answer additional questions that some council members have had. So here we are again with this item, and we now have the CAO report, and I'll now pass it on to our staff to make this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Emilio Rodriguez, again, CAO's office. We concur with the Bureau of Sanitation on a policy for banning single-use carryout bags. We do not, however, recommend a ban on paper carryout bags at this time, but rather that bags be offered for a fee of 10 cents to provide an option for consumer choice, at least until consumers become more comfortable with reusable bags, as more guidelines regarding their manufacturing care come into play. Paper bag option with the charge is consistent with Los Angeles County, Long Beach, and other jurisdictions. It is widely understood that paper bags can present their own set of environmental risks. Therefore, we recommend that paper bag usage be revisited in 2 years to determine the extent of a reduction in single-use bag usage altogether, and whether a higher fee, let's say 25 cents, or a full ban be warranted then to maximize the environmental benefit. What we don't want to see is a situation where paper bags have essentially replaced plastic on the waste stream. Recommendations of our report only request council approval of a policy statement for further study. Approval of a program and ordinance is subject to environmental analysis through CEQA. We also recommend that under any policy option, enforcement language be included under consultation with the city attorney that would enhance the city's ability to collect fines, such as through collections or leverage through the city's business tax. In terms of impact on businesses and consumers, a bag charge would allow retailers to recover the cost of paper bags, minimize impact on grocery prices, while encouraging use of reusable bags. While reusable bags generally cost about $1, their per-use cost to the consumer translates to about less than 1 cent when used a minimum number of times, and this typically translates to about 125, 150 uses, which is about holding onto a bag for about 2 years. None of the bag fees would go to the city. However, the city can tax gross receipts on the sale of bags. The overall impact on the environment and city residents includes potentially reduced costs on litter cleanup. Past waste characterization studies on catch basin and river channel cleanups have indicated that plastic bags comprise about a fifth to a third of collected debris. The policy on plastic bags also enhances the city's TMDL compliance, its totally maximum daily load requirements, and further mitigates risk of water pollutant sanctions by enforcement agencies. The impact on manufacturers and local jobs can hinge on a variety of factors, including market share for the product and or the ability to realign to a different business model. Whether jobs will be lost as a result of a city ban on plastics is generally inconclusive. That really ultimately depends on manufacturers' business decisions. What can be reasonably assumed, however, is that as bag bans take effect across more jurisdictions, the risk to manufacturers becomes more critical and evident. As far as operational requirements, we're currently envisioning 2 full-time environmental compliance inspectors, 2 administrative staff for a cost of approximately $420,000. These would be special funded or reimbursed from special funds or any revenues from fines. Any recommendations for staffing would be made upon development of a final program. The proposed ban is limited to supermarkets, grocery stores, convenience stores, and retailers with a pharmacy service or limited line of grocery offerings. This includes about 7,500 businesses in the city under this definition that more commonly use lighter weight bags that impact our public spaces and water bodies the most. An additional estimated 27,000 retailers and restaurants in the city are not impacted by the proposed ban. We recommend that these be reviewed as a second phase effort. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bureau of Sanitation, you have anything to add?
Yes. Good afternoon, council members. Enrique Zaldívar, Director of Sanitation. I just wanted to give a quick refresher on the background and recent actions on this item. It's a discussion that's been going on for quite some time, but of recent, since the introduction of Councilmember Corretz's motion, we really stepped up the activity and the analysis of the policy consideration. In October, we presented a recommendation to our Board of Commissioners, the Board of Public Works, that essentially recommended that we ban all single-use bags in the city. That would include paper and plastic and any other material that a single-use bag would be made of. The board approved that recommendation and forwarded it to your council, and the council took it up in December. And at that point, the council asked that we, sanitation, along with the CAO, do a number of things. So this is a report back from us as well. and with 4 areas that you specifically asked that we do following that consideration in council. One was that we do a very, as extensive a outreach effort as we possibly could do within 60 days from December. Within 60 days. We've done that, and we're going to report back to you today to you on the results of that. Arena will do that in a minute. You asked us also to do an instruction at sanitation to report relative to the impact of the CEQA regarding the timing and process and what would be required depending on what policy adoption you make. Also, you asked that we do an update on any activity, legislative or otherwise, that has taken place since this item was discussed in council back in December. And so we've done that in our report, and we will present that on that as well. And any other legislation that has been introduced in this current legislative session at the state level since last December. So we're prepared to report on all those 4 items back to you. We had some very extensive engagement with a number of stakeholders, and you'll see that there's support certainly for the policy recommendation we had made, and then one also that would have a phase out of kind of what the CIO recommended in their report, which we would ban plastic and then phase out paper over a period of time. So, but rather than preempting Reina Pereira, she led the effort on the public outreach for the last 3 months, very busy 3 months.
Thank you, Enrique. Reina Pereira, Bureau of Sanitation. As Enrique mentioned, we did do an extensive outreach effort over the last 60 days, and we tried to be as broad and diverse and as extensive with the outreach as possible. Stakeholders included grocery store shoppers, grocery stores and store managers, businesses, industry and manufacturing associations, environmental groups, neighborhood councils and homeowner associations, various interest groups, minority and low-income groups, LA Unified and Solid Waste Integrated Resource Plan stakeholders, libraries, municipalities, Channel 5, some media relations, and various elected and appointed officials at the state and local level. The outreach consisted essentially of 4 targeted groups. We did intercepts at 30 grocery stores throughout the city, 2 in each council district, and that represented a real diverse, random sample of everyday shoppers within the city. We had personal interactions with over 6,500 of those shoppers at these grocery stores, and the majority of comments that were submitted showed support for a double ban, and some even expressed a phased-out approach to a double ban that may assist customers in changing their behavior, remembering to bring their bags, and also this would be a benefit to store managers to make the adjustment to the proposed double ban. So the other levels of outreach include email blasts to over 4,100 stakeholders from various databases, one-on-one meetings with key interest groups and business groups, which included the California Grocers Association, LA Chamber of Commerce, FICA, Albertsons, County Public Works, and Calabasas. And then also various group meetings, which included neighborhood councils, as I mentioned, homeowners associations. We conducted 2 workshops, one in the Valley and one in downtown LA, specifically focused on the reusable bag policy, and invited about 4,000 of our stakeholders from our database to attend that meeting. And so that was essentially the extent of our outreach in the very limited time that we had. And in general, I'd say that the general public showed support for the double ban and were more receptive to possibly like a phased-in approach to make that adjustment.
Thank you very much. We also have with us the President of the Public Works Commission, Andrea Alarcon, I'm not sure if you would like to add anything, and we also have Commissioner Jarlin Lopez Mendoza. If you would also like to add anything or not, you're welcome to. So, thank you. Thank you for being here, Commissioner Jarlin Mendoza.
Come on up. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, council members. Thank you for the opportunity to address you. I know that you've heard this item several times, and it is a pleasure to provide some perspective as to the insight that was provided by virtue of the public comment to the Board of Public Works. As you are aware, late last year, our board unanimously supported the recommendation to council to adopt a single-use bag ban, which would prohibit the distribution of both plastic and paper single-use bags in designated stores. The board's action to support such a recommendation was made in consideration of written and oral testimony provided to us during our 3.5-hour hearing on the matter. During that hearing, several questions were raised, most of which fit within two key issue areas. One, environmental impacts. Two, economic/job impacts. First, the environmental impacts. The production and disposal of plastic bags causes significant and detrimental environmental impacts. It creates urban blight, litter in our streets, and is one of the primary components of litter collected in our waterways. Plastic litter in our waterways endangers our marine life by noted entanglement and ingestion. In fact, a recent study of plastic ingestion found that approximately 35% of the fish sampled had ingested plastic fragments. Plastics, which some would assert could migrate up the food chain and into our food sources. While the detrimental impacts of plastic litter are widely recognized, it is important to note that single-use paper bags also have a negative environmental impact. Recent studies have shown that the increased use of paper bags would produce greater greenhouse gas emissions during transportation due to their weight and volume and would affect significant deforestation. Therefore, paper bags are not necessarily a better environmental alternative to plastic bags. Both single-use products being discussed today have different but arguably equally negative environmental impacts. Therefore, a ban on one single-use environmentally detrimental product, namely plastic bags, while allowing use and distribution of another similar product, paper bags, affords the city little, if any, net environmental gain. It goes without saying, then, that the greatest environmental benefit would be effectuated through a ban on all single-use bags. The primary intent of a policy of this nature is clearly environmentally grounded. However, such a policy also has economic implications. Most important of those economic considerations is the potential impact to jobs. Given the state of the economy and the most recent unemployment rate of 11.8% in LA County, this was the primary focus of the commissioner discussion at our board hearing. During that hearing, however, we were able to ascertain important employment data from the local grocery bag manufacturers, which I believe would be helpful to inform your decision as it did ours. According to the testimony provided by the manufacturers themselves, first, there do not exist any plastic grocery bag manufacturers in LA City. There are, however, 3 such manufacturers in LA County. One, Crown Poly, located in Vernon and Huntington Park, with 300 employees. Command Packaging, also located in Vernon, with 250 employees. And Omega Extruding, located in Compton, with 200 employees. Combined, there are approximately 750 total direct plastic bag manufacturing jobs in the county. 2 important factors to note are that each of these manufacturers make products in addition to plastic grocery bags, and each of these manufacturers serve clientele across the nation and internationally. In the case of Crown Poly, for instance, Kathy Brown, its general manager, testified that 65% of their overall production is for plastic grocery bags, meaning that 35% of their production is for other goods. Of their plastic bag production, 90% of those grocery bags are for use in other parts of the United States, not here in LA County. Extrapolating from those figures, plastic bags in LA City only amounts to approximately 5% of Crown Poly's overall production. Similarly, Command Packaging testified that they, quote, produce some grocery bags, but they primarily produce other bags. That plastic grocery bags represent a percentage, but not a majority of their business. Therefore, given that these manufacturers produce a diverse range of products and the grocery bag market in LA represents a small percentage of the overall market share for their product, there was insufficient information to support a clear and direct cause and effect between the implementation of the proposed ban and job loss. Our city has for many years been actively involved in trying to reduce litter in our waterways and our streets. While we've made great strides in the right direction, there is still much more to be done because 384 million single-use bags recycled is only a fraction of the 2.7 billion total single-use bags being disposed of annually in the city. The fact remains that the majority of these materials are still thrown away and still become litter, cleanup costs that are largely borne by the city. For all the reasons that I've mentioned, our Board of Public Works unanimously supported the policy recommendation to ban all single-use bags. While we would encourage you to support our recommendation, we understand that such a wide-sweeping policy initiative may require periods of transition or phasing in, and we look forward to working with you to implement whichever program you deem in the best interest of the city. Thank you so much for the opportunity to address you.
Great, thank you very much. Commissioner, anything to add?
Nothing to add. I just wanted to emphasize that the issue of jobs and the impact on the local economy was one we took very seriously. I'm actually looking at my notes from October 12th, which was when we held the hearing, and my information is absolutely identical to what President Alarcon just recited. So it was something that we went into in great detail because we were very concerned about the potential for job loss in the local economy, and simply didn't find it after some very close questioning. The other thing I would say is simply that in looking at the history of this issue, the city council motions in support of this type of action go back to 2004 and include a majority of your fellow council members. And that was something that personally I found very inspiring and also very instructive in that it's been a long time policy priority for the council, and that us moving forward with this ban was simply in line with the council's direction from a variety of different council members. So I thank you for your opportunity to speak today, and also I encourage you to move this ball forward. I think we're all ready for it.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, we have a number of speakers. Would you want to ask questions now or go into public comment first and then come back to questions from...
I'm happy to let the speakers.
So we'll have the speakers go first, and then we'll come back for discussion. Oh, there he is. And for the record as well, Mr. Alarcon has joined us. So we have quite a number of speakers, and we will provide each public speaker 1 minute each to speak. I think we have over 40 speakers, it seems like here. I'm just looking at it. 40? That's pretty. 45? That's pretty good. All right. Good. Guess I should go count cards in Vegas, huh? We have about 45 speakers, and we will provide everyone 1 minute each. Feel free to be brief in your comments, but if you would like to just simply state you agree with the previous speaker, that is welcomed as well. So with that...
Could they have groups come together?
Yeah, I'm going to call up the four groups at a time. And
they have lots of speakers. If there's 5 or 6 for the group, 1 speaker for the whole group.
Okay, Mr. Zine suggested if there's a group of people that would like to come up and have 1 or 2 speakers for the whole group and just say the rest of us agree, that is welcomed as well. We're trying to avoid redundancy, but if you want to underline or stress a point, that's fine as well. But if we could all try to be as brief as possible. Thank you very much. Our first 4 speakers are Dr. Tom Williams, Sidney Marantz, Stephen Botzoffen, and Michelle Kinman. Welcome, Dr. Tom Williams.
Dr. Tom Williams, LA 32 Neighborhood Council. We voted for recycling of bags. We want a reusable bag all the time. We put our money where our mouth is. We voted for a supply of reusable bags for our board members, for our people, as part of our outreach. We voted for it, over $500. So we are already there. We support getting rid of the plastic bags when they come out. I don't have any orphan bags. I recycle all of mine through the Department of Public Works. So please vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, can you state your name, please?
Sid Marantz. What you people probably are not aware of is that this plan is very unpopular among the people. Save one, every time this has been put on a ballot for the people to vote on, it's been defeated. In addition to that, I went to 2 neighborhood council meetings, one in Encino and one in Sherman Oaks, which is where I live, which is Paul Koretz's district, and there was good argument on both sides. Both sides were well represented. And in Encino, the vote was 10-2 to oppose the ban. And in Sherman Oaks, it was 13-5 to oppose the ban. And these are liberal people. They tend to be green. They tend to vote Democratic, and they're very concerned with their quality of life in their neighborhoods, and they voted not to support this ban.
Thank you very much, sir. Next speaker, please. State your name, please.
My name is Stephen Batsifin. I'm here representing Earthwise Bag Company. We are a reusable bag manufacturer based in LA County. We're also a founding member of the Reusable Bag Association, which is our trade group. I'm also a resident of the city of LA. I'm here to encourage you to support the proposed ban on single-use plastic bags and a mandated fee on paper bags. We firmly believe that a ban on single-use plastic bags will have a meaningful and positive impact. It is important to note that the vast majority of stakeholders are behind the proposed ban. The local community environment will benefit from less litter and pollution in parks, highways, and waterways. Residents will have access to a range of alternatives, including no-charge and low-cost reusable bags. Local government will benefit from reduced costs associated with cleanup and disposal of plastic bags. Grocery retailers, along with their trade group, the California Grocers Association, stand firmly behind a ban on single-use plastic bags and the mandated fee on paper. The grocery retailers are the largest private sector stakeholders affected by this ban and represent tens of thousands of jobs and millions of dollars of economic investment in the local economy.
Thank you very much.
Michelle Kinman, I'm an advocate with Environment California, which is a statewide citizen-funded environmental advocacy organization with a network of over 50,000 supporters in the LA area. Thank you for considering this critical issue. Unfortunately, LA City residents use approximately 2 billion of these bags each year, less than 5% of which are recycled. Instead, they end up sitting in landfills, littering our streets, clogging our streams, fouling the beaches that tourists from the world over come to visit, and floating out to sea. The good news is, despite what you have heard just now, there's a growing movement to support bans for single-use plastic bags across California and across the world. Over 40 city and county governments in California to date have passed bans, and numerous others are in the works to pass such bans. And so I really look forward to Los Angeles becoming a leader in this growing movement, signaling to cities around the globe that we are banning plastic bags is an idea whose time has come. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's been brought to my attention that we have a representative from the Los Angeles County, from LA County here, Kobe Sky. Before we go on, I want to give you an opportunity just to provide some remarks on the experience from the county. And can you state your name and title there, please?
Sure thing. Thank you very much. My name is Kobe Sky. I'm a civil engineer with the Los Angeles County Department of Public Works, and I have been working as a program manager for the county's single-use bag reduction and recycling program. Really appreciate the opportunity and invitation to speak to all of you today, and I'll keep my comments brief since we have a lot of other speakers. As many of you know, the county adopted an ordinance back in November of 2010 to prohibit the use of single-use plastic bags and impose a 10-cent charge on paper bags that is kept by the stores. The adoption of the ordinance followed a lengthy stakeholder process, a review of a number of alternatives, and the completion of a full environmental impact report. Our decision to complete an AIR followed information we saw in other jurisdictions where legal challenges required an environmental analysis, and the county made a decision to conduct a county-wide environmental impact report. And what that means is that all 88 cities were included in that environmental analysis, including the city of Los Angeles, in order to save public resources and avoid other cities to have to replicate that work. The EIR evaluated impacts from 5 different options, including a ban on both paper and plastic, as well as a ban on plastic bags and a fee on paper bags. And several cities have adopted ordinances within LA County, including Calabasas, who adopted the county's EIR as is, and Long Beach, who adopted an addendum when they adopted our EIR. It's important to note that our initial process, our EIR, and the ordinance itself has been upheld in all legal challenges or other challenges, as has been other ordinances that have been adopted by cities in LA County. So it is now fully implemented. There hasn't been a delay in the implementation of the ordinance, and July 1st of 2011 was when the ordinance went into effect at all large supermarkets and drugstores, and January 1st of this year was when it became effective for all grocery stores, pharmacies, convenience food stores, food marts, so very similar to the definition that was suggested for the city of LA. The results have been very successful. At the large stores, which number 74 in the unincorporated areas, all of them are now fully compliant. They've eliminated single-use plastic bags. Many of them offer paper bags and reusable bags for sale. The 647 small stores will submit their first quarterly reports at the end of April. So we don't have full information about those stores, but from the work that we're doing and reaching out to those stores, it's been successful as well. Our cost for implementation, the costliest provision were actually the development of the EIR, followed by public education and outreach activities and giving away single-use bags, doing outreach events. And lastly is the implementation costs, which are ongoing costs but are very manageable. The other issue that I know would be of interest to you is the impact to residents. We actually completed an economic analysis prior to adopting the ban and found that on average the estimated cost per resident would be, or per shopper would be approximately $5.72 a year, or roughly 48 cents a month. This is actually a conservative estimate, and it was based on not only the cost of the paper bags, a 10-cent charge, but also replacement for plastic bags that might be used as trash liners or for other purposes, as well as the increase in taxes for those purchases. Now, because the estimate assumed that there would be a significant increase, roughly a doubling in the use of paper bags after the ordinance went into effect, that figure was high, but in fact, based on the reports that we received to date, there's been a substantial reduction, a 24% reduction in paper bag use from before the ordinance went into effect to after. So overall, as a result, because we've eliminated plastic bags, there's been a 94% drop in single-use bags, both plastic and paper combined, from before the ordinance went into effect to now. It's also important to note that WIC and SNAP participants are exempted from paying the 10 cents, and our economic study found that even low-income residents that weren't participating in those programs would have a very limited impact because they would bring reusable bags or refuse paper bags when they did their shopping. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that any of you have regarding the county's program.
I have when you say that low-income folks refuse the paper bag, what do they do? And if they didn't have a reusable bag, I mean, they walk out without any bags? They walk
Right,
out with the merchandise in their arms, or what do they do?
The stores are reporting to us that many shoppers, especially if they only have a handful of items, simply don't use a bag. They just carry the items in their arms.
Okay. And in terms of the economic impact in low-income communities, you say that's negligible, that some of the shoppers, they haven't felt the impact?
Right. Our estimates are, and especially the numbers that we're seeing reinforce this, that most shoppers are bringing their own bags or refusing bags, meaning that the net impact is negligible. And the lowest income residents who are participating in WIC and SNAP do not have to pay for the paper bags if they choose to use them.
Thank you very much. Thank you. The next four speakers are Paula Waxman, Jim Craig, Jessica Goodhart, Kathy Brown. Welcome. Why don't we start here?
Hi, I'm Kathy Brown. I'm General Manager of Crown Poly. We are a manufacturer of plastic grocery bags, and we're located in LA County. I'm proud that 20 years ago I was the second employee. We've now grown to 300 employees, and I will sit here and fight for every one of those 300 jobs. Our bags are reusable. The vast majority, over 70% of consumers, reuse grocery bags from the plastic grocery bags from the store as a trash bag. our bags are recyclable. It's one of the most easily recycled items to put back into itself. You can take a bag, recycle it, and turn it back into another bag. Our bags also support source reduction, which is reducing the use of plastic. That's a goal we share as well as the environmentalists. The City of LA should be encouraging manufacturers in the city and county rather than discouraging manufacturers. Every manufacturing job brings a multiplier effect, so every one of our 300 jobs brings up to 3,000 indirect supply jobs to the area. And I'm out of time. I'd be happy to address any specific issues if you have at a later time.
Great. Thank you very much. Next speaker.
My name is Jim Craig. I'm the director of Green Vets Los Angeles. We are a nonprofit sewing program. I set up a sewing operation in the West Los Angeles VA hospital. We provide work rehab programs, and we give work to disabled vets and homeless veterans. I also own a sewing operation in Carson. We manufacture the recycled shopping bags locally, and we manufacture them from cloth that comes from the waste stream. My main point today is regarding jobs. A friend of mine owns a plastic bag company. He told me that it takes less than 2 hours to manufacture 100,000 bags. If you give me an order for 100,000 bags, you'll be giving 10 people. Two plastic bag operators 2 hours. For 10 people, you'd be providing jobs for 6 months for 10 people with an order for 100,000. You'll be creating thousands of jobs in sewing, and the garment industry is already dying. You've already provided an increase in jobs in our sewing operation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I'm Paula Waxman, the co-chair of the South Robertson Neighborhood Council Green Committee. We join 22 neighborhood councils who are in favor of a ban of single-use plastic bags. Obviously, a ban on single-use bags needs basic grassroots support. I'm here today to present to you letters of that grassroots support for a bag ban from 22 neighborhood councils who represent 977,049 stakeholders. That's nearly a quarter of the city. We wholeheartedly support your efforts to get rid of plastic bags and in the process protect our rivers, our oceans, and the creatures that live within them. In conclusion, I would be most grateful if you would approve an ordinance that mirrors the LA County model and eventually phases out paper bags as well, and that you send this to the full council for a vote.
Thank you very much. And do we have Jessica Goodhart? Jessica Goodhart, not here. Okay, our next four speakers are...
Mr. Weezer?
Yes, sir.
Would it be appropriate for us to ask any questions of speakers, or do you want to wait until they're...
No, absolutely. If there's a public speaker and you'd like to ask some questions, please do.
The gentleman here, I believe his name was Jim, who is a bag manufacturer. Just want to ask if you could tell us more about who your employees are and what their circumstances are.
At the Veterans Program, we set up the sewing operation, so they're actually veterans. There's over 1,000 veterans that are housed at the West LA VA facility who are sitting there basically collecting dust, doing nothing. So we set up a program as a job rehab and vocational rehab program for those folks. They would otherwise probably be homeless veterans. Additionally, we provide them job training, and then we give them job opportunities to work elsewhere in the sewing industry. But with the expansion of the demand for cloth shopping bags, we see a requirement throughout the sewing industry for those jobs, and with that job training, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next four speakers are Leticia Saucedo, Maria Montes, Carlos Medrano, and Abad Dorantes.
Good afternoon. My name is Carlos Medrano. I work at Crown Poly. I'm a supervisor. 6 years ago, I was struggling to find a job, and I found a good job with good benefits. We have a lot of benefits right there, and we have 300 employees. Most of these employees are going to be affected if the bags, get banned. And I think, that at the end, we still have a lot of products that we buy every day that come in plastic, like CDs, DVDs, almost everything that we buy, and it's all going to the trash. So I don't think that the plastic bags is the problem. I think the problem is educating, our community, our families to recycle them.
Thank you very much. Next speaker.
Mi nombre es Leticia Saucedo. Yo soy empleada de Crown Poly, soy empacadora.
Un momento. Do you want to translate?
Her name is Leticia Saucedo. She works as a packer at the same company, Crown Poly.
Yo solamente les quiero pedir, por favor, que nos ayuden a mantener nuestro trabajo. Nuestras familias sufrirían mucho si nos quedáramos sin trabajo.
She's asking for your help to keep her job. Her whole family depends on her job.
Mi futuro y el futuro de mi familia y de las de mis compañeros están en sus manos.
The future of her family and their coworkers depend on you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Okay. Buenas tardes, mi nombre es María Montes. Yo trabajo para Crown Poly por 16 años y quisiera que ustedes nos ayudaran a conservar nuestro trabajo porque de ahí depende nuestra familia. Y pues he estado yo muy contenta trabajando para Crown Poly y quiero conservar mi trabajo y que en sus manos está que nos puedan ayudar a todos mis compañeros y a mí a conservar nuestros trabajos.
Her name is Maria Montes. She has been working for the company for over 16 years now. The whole family depends on this job, and she's out helping you guys, to help her keep her job.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Buenas tardes, tengan todos ustedes. Mi nombre es Abad Dorantes. Trabajo para Crown Poly desde hace 12 años y les vengo a pedir de favor que no pasen la ley, ya que si nos ponemos a ver, la gente que está en contra de las bolsas.
His name is Abad Dorantes. He has been working at Crown Poly for over 12 years, and he's asking you guys to help him keep his job.
La gente que están pensando que las bolsas de plástico son contaminantes, ¿por qué no se ponen a pensar lo que pasó con la compañía BP que derramó demasiado petróleo en el Golfo de México? Y luego el año pasado, si alguien se dio cuenta, fue una noticia mundial, en la playa de Redondo Beach hubo una cortina de pescados muertos, en otro estado hubo muchos pájaros muertos y nunca se dijo que fueron las bolsas de plásticos las causantes de las muertes de las especies marinas y las aves. Debemos pensar en lo que puede causar un cierre de una compañía como esta que emplea a 300 personas y la economía de los angelinos. Esta compañía les da trabajo a cientos de personas y los angelinos debemos estar contentos que tenemos trabajo en este momento, que la economía está muy mala.
He was mentioning that in the last years we had a problem with oil being spilled on the ocean, and that was a bigger problem than the plastic bags that we have right now. Banning the plastic bags is going to affect our jobs, and there's going to be a lot more unemployment for families and people that live in LA County.
Okay. Thank you. Gracias. Next four speakers are Maria Yolanda, I can't make out the last name, Padilla or Fuentes, Alicia Ortiz, Hilary Gordon, and Kirsten James. Go in.
Hi, my name is Alicia Ortiz. I have been an employee for Crown Poly for the past 6 years. I am here to let you know that it would affect our job if they pass the ban bags. I'm a single mother, and my family depends on me and my income that Crown Poly provides for myself. Besides that, the health insurance that Crown Poly provides for me, it's to provide for my children as well, and I need insurance for my youngest daughter that needs her glasses. And if we don't have a Crown Poly to work with, then it would be very difficult for me to get a health insurance for my daughter. I'm here to ask to think of us as humans, as employees, that we are working in a place that it's a paying job. If we go work somewhere else, we're not going to get a job that's paying us what we make right now, tomorrow or next week. We make good money, and Crown Poly provides all that benefits for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker.
Mi nombre es María Yolanda Fuentes.
Her name is Maria Yolanda Fuentes.
Yo tengo trabajando en Gran Poli 6 años.
She's been employed for Crown Poly for the past 6 years.
Y si hicieran la compañía si nos quitan el trabajo, pues los afectados vamos a ser todos los que trabajamos no nomás en esta compañía, en más fábricas que también se dedican a fabricar bolsas de plástico.
They banned the plastic bags, and it would not only affect Crown Poly, but it would affect the other companies that make plastic bags as well as we do.
Y si ustedes aceptan en quitar las bolsas de plástico y aceptan hacer las bolsas de papel, ¿qué es lo que van a hacer? ¿Van a tumbar miles de árboles? ¿Es lo que no piensan ustedes en eso?
If this would pass and they would start using paper bags, then that would affect the environment as well, not just the plastic bags.
Todos estamos con lo del medio ambiente, pero no se ponen a pensar en eso. Nomás ellos, todos los que quieren quitar la bolsa de plástico, más piensan a favor de ellos y no de todos los que estamos trabajando en estas compañías.
The people that want to eliminate the plastic bags only think about the environment of the plastic bag, but they don't think as the employees.
Yo desde que empezó y que cerrar compañías que han descansado gente, desde que yo tengo ahí trabajando, ni un día nos han dejado nos han mandado a nuestras casas. Siempre hemos tenido trabajo, aseguranza de dental, dentista, para uno personalmente. Y si nos quitan el trabajo, ¿qué vamos a hacer nosotros?
Since she's been an employee for Crown Poly, there has never been a laid off or send people home because there's no work. They have health insurance for them, for vision and dental for their families as well.
Yo ahorita estoy trabajando para pagar mi renta, como les he dicho, y pues mi esposo apenas empezó a trabajar, pero es muy poco lo que él gana. Yo con lo que yo gano allí, estamos pasándola. Entonces nos quitan el trabajo, pues nosotros no nos gustaría andar pidiéndole al gobierno que nos den para la renta, ni andar haciendo cosas indebidas que sea para mal para uno.
She's an employee, and she says that Crown Poly provides income for her. Her husband had been laid off and is currently just got a job, and she's not asking money for the government. She's supporting herself with what she makes from Crown Poly.
Okay, thank you. Gracias.
Gracias.
Next speakers, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Hilary Gordon. I'm the chair of the Zero Waste Committee for the Angeles chapter of the Sierra Club. I'm going to cut out a lot of my comments in the interests of time. Just would like to mention I'm here representing the 40,000 members of the Angeles chapter, and that we are very strongly in support of the double ban on both paper and plastic. I'll just, without going into details, reiterate the very eloquent comments that Commissioner Alarcón made about the environmental consequences of the use of paper as well as plastic. We're all familiar with the 3 R's. I think now is really the time to focus on the first 2, reduce and reuse. We need to move away from the assumption that disposability is a good thing and that the environmental consequences of convenience can be ignored. It's cultural change, of course. It's a habit change, and that's going to be hard to do, but it will be a lot easier to do with something that has city support behind it. So an ordinance from the city will go a long way towards helping the citizens of Los Angeles make that change of habit and that cultural change that's required. Just to move things along, the one thing I would like to add that I haven't heard anyone say so far is that if you do decide to go with the transition to paper bags, we would like to very strongly encourage you to make sure that those paper bags are made out of 100% post-consumer recycled materials. And regardless of which way you do decide to go, we would also like to ask that you make sure that the reusable bags themselves are made out of recyclable and recycled materials, and ideally that those be manufactured here in Los Angeles. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon. My name is Kirsten James. I'm the Water Quality Director with Heal the Bay. And I've been before you many times on this issue. The City of Los Angeles Council has made a commitment on this policy on several occasions over the last 5+ years. And since that time, 43 municipalities have moved forward in the state of California with a single-use bag ordinance of some kind. And the good news is that we can obviously share a lot of lessons learned on this issue. You heard from the county of the successes that they're already seeing at such an early stage. We can also rule out the types of policies that aren't working. Recycling just isn't the answer. We found recyclers don't want the material. Less than 3% is being recycled, even after a statewide law that put recycling bins at all grocery stores. So recycling is just not the answer. So we ask you to move forward today. We support both of the policy proposals, but the key is that you must address plastic and paper. We don't want to see one switched for the other. We want to move towards reusables. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
can I ask Ms. James if there are any other lessons that we've learned in terms of recycling?
Well, definitely, with recycling, we're finding that, despite AB 2449 that was put in place, we're seeing recycling rates hovering around 3%, which is pretty abysmal. So recycling's just not working. We saw the county, before they went forward with their policy, they tried a voluntary approach and tried to do some target reductions, and that just didn't work at all. And so that's what drove them to the ban option. So I think those are important lessons learned, and the policies before you, the double ban and the ban on plastic with a charge on paper, are both really strong policies.
And if I could ask one more question. I don't know if you have the answer to this or not. I've heard that many of the plastic bags that were expected to be recycled are actually shipped out of the country and burned. Do you have any percentages or any information on that?
I don't have percentages, but I've heard the same thing. So perhaps someone else can address that. But yeah, unfortunately, a lot of the quote recyclables are just taken elsewhere, and other environmental consequences happen because of that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Rick Cramble, Sarah Sheehy, Jessica Duboff, and Graham Hamilton. Crandall, I got that.
Crandall.
Crandall, right?
Good afternoon, council members. Thank you for allowing us to speak. I represent Albertsons grocery stores. We have 11 stores in the city of LA. We have 248 in Southern California and Nevada. I'm the director of sustainability for Albertsons in Southern California, and we spent 3 years working with LA County on their reusable bag ordinance. We supported that. We support the CGA, who has thousands of members supporting that ban. Our greatest concern is that this policy alone is going to be very confusing for the constituents that put all of us here. Our greatest concern is not having a patchwork design across multiple cities. Right now, we've been very fortunate. Los Angeles County, Calabasas, Santa Monica, Long Beach, Pasadena goes July 1st, San Luis Obispo County goes in September 1st, all with the same ban bag, which is the LA County ordinance. We support that. We support it because it allows consumers a choice, and that's it. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Sarah Sheehy with the California Grocers Association, and on behalf of the Grocers Association, I urge you to move forward with the CAO recommended action of banning plastic bags while placing a 10-cent charge on paper. This type of ordinance is very successful in promoting reusable bag use and reducing litter, but also protects customers and retailers if they don't bring enough reusable bags for unplanned purchases. Customers maintain a low-cost option, 10 cents for paper, for unplanned purchases, and retailers encourage additional sales. It's also why we can't be supportive of a phase-out, and why we don't need it. This model works. Finally, an ordinance adopted by the city should incorporate all businesses distributing single-use carryout bags. It stands to reason if a bag is detrimental when received at a grocery store, it is detrimental when received at a hardware store or a clothing store. We urge you to help avoid a patchwork and adopt the LA County model of banning plastic and charging for paper. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon. My name is Jessica Duboff. I'm here on behalf of the Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber would like to urge that the process to ban single-use bags be conducted in a thorough and thoughtful manner. This is a significant policy decision that will impact many of our businesses and all of our residents at a time when dollars are tight. Reusable bags have certainly become more prevalent, and we thank the city for their efforts to promote these bags. We support the CAO's recommendation to move forward with a ban on plastic while allowing paper bags to be available for a small charge. This will take a significant step towards reducing waste and cleaning our oceans while recognizing the economic realities for businesses and what is feasible for consumers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Graham Hamilton. I'm here on behalf of the Surfrider Foundation. I'm also the co-chair of the Rise Above Plastics campaign here in Los Angeles County. Just to make this quick, this doesn't seem like an issue of if this ordinance is ever going to be pressed through, but when. And walking around the halls of this building, City Hall, I see posters that say, you know, LA is the city of angels, and let's make it the city of green angels. LA aspires to be a viably sustainable community, and this is an issue that would make us just that. Does LA want to be a leader in this initiative, or do we want to follow? And I think that the answer is that LA wants to lead the environmental movement. The idea of recycling these bags is really not a viable argument, whether or not they're used for 10 seconds or best case scenario for a week as a recycled waste liner. These products are going to be in the municipal waste stream or the terrestrial or marine environment for centuries, and it's not a sustainable option for us anymore. So we support the ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next four speakers are Bill Hickman, Leslie Taminen, Ann Nguyen, Ariel Jacobs. You know what? I've never gotten the last name right.
You're not the only one, Councilman.
Yeah. Why don't we start over here?
Leslie Tamminen, Ocean Program Director of Seventh Generation Advisors. I strongly urge the city to adopt a single-use bag ban ordinance that addresses both paper and plastic. Consequently, we are supportive of both types of ordinances, the dual ban or the ban fee model. We also encourage you to initiate and expedite environmental review to effectuate adoption by August 1st in time for the conclusion of the state legislative session. I've also submitted a letter detailing why we believe there are no existing legal impediments great enough to deter the city. We ask you to direct your city attorney today to consider all the legal options.
Everybody could just, you could wait here to hear the announcement if this is an actual emergency or not.
You have it.
Office of Public Safety. We are testing the line
it's working.
of this building. I repeat, this is only a test. May I have your attention, please? May I have your attention, please? This is the Office of Public Safety. We are testing the breathing system of this building. This is only a test.
Okay, if you could continue.
Okay. To request your city attorney to fully consider legal alternatives for ordinance development, including adoption of the LA County EIR, should you wish environmental review. We believe LA City could do a categorical exemption, but we hope, if not, that you consider the EIR LA County's done.
Great. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Can I ask one quick follow-up question
Sure.
to Ms. Tamminen? What do we know about how this legislation will impact proposed state legislation? Because you mentioned the timing of that.
The legislative session, I believe, concludes at the end of September. Therefore, it's critical that Los Angeles weigh in before then. I do think that if Los Angeles City can do that, that the state legislation will be successful. At least I hope so. I also think that it's very important for other cities statewide to see the example of a big city like Los Angeles, especially since the Prop 26 lawsuit against LA County has been decided in the county's favor, squarely in the county's favor. And even though an appeal is expected, we feel that right now, since all the legal impediments have vastly been removed compared to several years ago, that we need to lead by example.
And by talking about weighing in, you're talking about a completed ordinance actually being finalized
Correct.
in August.
Correct.
Thank you.
One other question. You said you reviewed the legal issues. Who are you with? What's the name of the organization you're with?
I'm a California Ocean Science trustee. I'm an attorney, but I'm here today as the Ocean Program Director of Seventh Generation Advisors, which is a California environmental nonprofit.
And who has conducted the legal analysis?
Me.
You, okay. On behalf of which organization?
On behalf of Seventh Generation
Okay, on
Advisors.
behalf of them. And did the county do a full EIR?
Los Angeles County, I believe, did do a full EIR, as you heard Kobe Sky testify, specifically meant to cover all 88 cities in the county.
And the main issue of the EIR was more on the plastic bags or the bags?
No, they looked at several different alternatives, including both of the alternatives this committee is considering, which is the dual ban as well as the ban fee model. And I know that Long Beach, for example, adopted the LA County EIR, but added an addendum, which is also something that this committee could decide to do for added legal protection to get information about how effective paper bag fees have been into the record as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Next speaker.
Good afternoon. My name is Ariel Jacobs. I am a actress singer from a Broadway musical that's called In the Heights. In the Heights was a musical on Broadway, also here at the Pantages here in LA, and it focused on the Latino community in Manhattan. So as a Latina, I have some comments to make about some advertisements that I've been seeing in the newspapers, particularly one in the La Opinion newspaper this afternoon. There's a plastic bag manufacturer that's working heavily on our community to oppose this ban. I want to say that I find this very offensive. The advertisements are saying, it's implying that the community thinks that the city council is ridiculous for proposing this ban, and they are distracted by trying to help the environment instead of helping our families and the economy. And I know that it's important to help the environment and also cut the cost by cleaning up the towns as well. As a Latina, I'm for the ban. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Hello, my name is Bill Hickman with the Surfrider Foundation, a volunteer-based coastal conservation organization. Our thousands of local members and tens of thousands of members statewide are concerned with how the ocean is slowly turning into a plastic soup and all the associated negative impacts on the marine and coastal environment. So we encourage you to move forward with a strong ordinance. A couple quick points regarding plastic bag recycling. The stats that I've seen show that over 40% of post-consumer bags and film are sent overseas where they have lax environmental laws and recycling laws. AB 2449 has been a failure. As people have mentioned, bags are 100% recyclable, but it seems misleading. Less than 5% of the bags are recycled statewide. Just today, I visited 3 stores covered by AB 2449 at Vermont and 3rd. 2 of them did not have plastic bag recycling bins. Vaughn's did. When I took a peek inside, it looked more like a trash bin than a recycling bin, to be honest with you. I'd also, was that a minute?
Wrap up that.
I'd just also like to point out Command Packaging, how they have a 100% recyclable bag out of recycled contents. They make it here in Vernon, so they have adapted to the changing environment, can thrive. So I'd just like to encourage all the local manufacturers to do it. I'd love to see more cloth bags from groups like Green Vets, but local business can do it. Please adopt a strong ordinance.
Thank you very much. Next speaker.
Good afternoon, Ann Nguyen with the Central City Association, and we represent nearly 450 members employing over 350,000 people in Los Angeles. As business leaders, we understand the importance of being environmentally responsible and adapting expectations to the 21st century about how we conduct our businesses. At the same time, we want to emphasize the importance of working to create balanced and meaningful policies that actually achieve the desired outcome. Imposing a dual ban on both plastic and paper is bad policy in our opinion. It offers consumers no options with a costly impact on business. We believe a ban on plastic and a fee on paper is a more reasonable alternative that achieves significant environmental goals without sacrificing business opportunity. So we oppose the dual ban and hope you take the time to really carefully consider this policy because it's a decision that not only affects businesses, but every single visitor to our city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for being here today. Our next speakers are Michael Babel, Stuart Waldman, Matthew Barnett, and Craig Caldwell-Ader. Stuart, I've known you for a long time, and it's a very easy name to pronounce. Waldman. So.
Well,
Why don't we start over here with Stuart? You're always...
all right. Stuart Waldman. I am president of the Valley Industry and Commerce Association, 370 members who have created over 300,000 jobs in Los Angeles. We are here because we are concerned that a double bag ban does not take into consideration the working poor who are not on assistance. It does not take into consideration transit-oriented Angelinos who are on buses throughout the day. In the past, we have supported the Julia Brownlee bill, Assemblymember Brownlee, that included a plastic bag ban and allowing grocery stores to charge for paper bags. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker.
Good afternoon. My name is Matthew Barnett. I'm a field representative for Assemblymember Julia Brownlee, and I'm here to read a statement on her behalf. Honorable Chair and committee members, I regret not being able to be here in person to extend my gratitude and support to the City of Los Angeles as you are poised to take the next steps to ban single-use plastic bags. As you are aware, I authored Assembly Bill 1998 last year, which would have enacted a statewide ban on this environmental scourge. The bill passed out of the Assembly and then moved on to the Senate, where it was hit by an avalanche of cash from the American Chemistry Council lobbyists who filled the halls and unfortunately were able to pick off enough votes to kill it. I encourage you to finalize the policy and to implement a comprehensive ban within the next month. It is essential for this ordinance to move forward for statewide support. The days of plastic bags are numbered. Thank you for standing up to the special interests. Angelinos already understand the importance of switching to convenient and environmentally friendly reusable bags. This action will be another and very significant step in the greening of the great city of Los Angeles.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Michael Babel. I'm with a group that studies the evolution of consciousness, and we just want to have it set on the record that we create the world that we live in. The oceans are turning into a plastic soup because we let it be that way. It's kind of like you look at that and you think, wow, that's the way that we used to do things. We used to take plastic bags and we used to throw them in the ocean. So I think that plastic bag days are numbered anyway, but to be a leader in that, I think is really important. Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, some of the big cities and a lot of the little towns that are making these decisions, really important. San Francisco Bay Area. If Los Angeles can do this, it provides an example that other people can follow. So please do pass this, both the plastic bags and the paper. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Craig Cadwallader. I'm representing the Surfrider Foundation South Bay chapter. Our territory goes from San Pedro to Marina del Rey, and I strongly urge you to support a comprehensive single-use bag ban. I can tell you from some of my understandings that issues like financial hardships, there are provisions to take care of situations like that. I've seen in other cities where that's been put in place to address financial hardships, so I do not think it's an issue. Just this last Sunday, I took a group of students through the Bayona wetlands. We do a regular water testing program called Teach and Test, and in the wetlands, we found plastic bags in the water and on the land. So I strongly urge you to support this, as well as right across the street, there's a plastic bag in the fountain. Thank you. Thank you.
Did you remove it?
It's gone now.
Okay. Thank you. Next speaker is Martha Vallis. Martha here? Martha's not here. Norma Fierro? Shiloh Brun? Alice
Hi. Let's see, how about John? Jonino?
Hello.
Who are you? You John?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. Right over here, take it down.
Okay.
We're starting with you.
Good afternoon. Buenas tardes. My name is Norma Fierro, and I work for Crown Poly. And I'm here because I'm concerned about the proposal to ban the plastic bags. And if that happens, I'm also work for Crown Poly. And if that happens, I will be losing my job. I'm a supporter of my family. So I'm also on medication, and I will be losing my job, losing my insurance. Please take in consideration. And I hope you make the best decision, so make a good choice, but please don't take away my job.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Yo me llamo Marta Valles. Y yo tengo 12 años.
Hold on, we need an
trabajando.
interpreter. Interpreter. Thank you.
Her name is Marta Valles.
Tengo 12 años trabajando en la Gran Poli.
She's been an employee for the past 12 years.
Y yo dependo mucho de mi trabajo, así como depende mi hermana, que tengo una hermana encargada que está incapacitada.
She is concerned about her job, but not only for herself, but she provides for her sister that's ill, and she's the one that takes care of her.
Para mí se me haría más difícil porque entre más pasa el tiempo, pues para mí sería más difícil para encontrar otro trabajo.
For her, it would be very difficult. As time goes by, it would be very difficult for her to find another job.
Espero que no nos quiten nuestro trabajo para poder seguir adelante.
She asked for you to please take in consideration and that she has a job, and it depends on you if she continues having that job.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Hi, my name is Alice Tai. I'm a student at UCLA. I support the proposal to ban single-use plastic bags. As for paper bags, I support the proposal to charge a fee. And that is so that the consumers in Los Angeles are better adapted to using reusable bags. And at our school, our organization called Calberg, we've collected 3,000 signatures in support of this proposal, and some of my fellow students will later come and bring these green papers up. And another thing is, I see like in other countries, and many people have already mentioned the economic impacts, the health impact, and also the environmental impact that this would have. But I support the people who have said that Los Angeles should be a leader in this movement. And as students of UCLA, like we came from school, we drove an hour. UCLA is pretty far and with traffic. So this is a matter that is really important to a lot of us. And so we hope that you guys would, pay attention and basically support this proposal. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is John Janino, and I am a student at UCLA and a representative from the University Student Government, which represents over 28,000 students. I am here to speak in support of the proposed reusable bag policy, and as research shows, less than 1% of all plastic bags are recycled in the United States. And as you may know, plastic bags have a severe impact on our environment. Toxic chemicals from plastic bags not only harm the environment, but pose severe health risks, especially in low-income communities and communities of color. So we want to stress that this is not just an environmental issue, but an issue of public health. Again, as a student at a public university, we look to your leadership in reducing waste and promoting sustainability. And as UCLA students, we encourage the city of Los Angeles to adopt this policy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next four speakers, Josh Joyner, Marissa Tsai, Joelle Gamble, and Melanie Woods. Welcome. Start up here.
Hi, my name is Josh Joyner. I'm a representative from the CalPERG chapter at USC.
We were here last December to present our 4,703 petitions that we've collected across campus in support of Councilmember Koretz's ban. And here we're here today to again present 1,667 more petitions that we've collected this semester in support of the ban. As you guys already know, Californians use over 12 billion plastic bags annually and recycle less than 5%. And these 5% not only clog up the recycling plants, but they also reduce their efficiency because of that. Not to mention, plastic bags are always floating around Los Angeles and are already incredibly toxic. After they blow around the town, they accumulate 5 times their toxicity levels and ultimately find their homes in the Pacific garbage patch in the ocean. Now, my good friend Andy Schrader already has a sample of the Pacific garbage patch water, and I've heard a lot of people come up and say that it's similar to a plastic soup. If you haven't already seen it, you guys should definitely check it out because it's incredibly disgusting, and we look forward to seeing Los Angeles being cleaner and healthier in the future.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Marissa Tai, and I'm also with the USC Calpert chapter. In interest of time, I won't be repetitive, but I would just like to say that I don't think convenience should come at the cost of our environment. And the ocean is an important symbol to all Californians. It's such an important part of our state and our culture, and I believe it's in everyone's interest to protect it.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, my name is Melanie Woods, and I am one of the many students here today representing UCLA and the UCLA student body government in support of the reusable bag policy. I'm sure we're all aware of how harmful plastic bags are to the environment, but I'm here to talk specifically about how this policy would affect the residents of Los Angeles City. Each year, more than $300 million are paid by government agencies to pick up and dispose of litter discarded in our city's neighborhoods. That's a lot of money that taxpayers, people in this room, are wasting for something that could be so easily solved with this policy. That's a lot of money that could be spent more effectively elsewhere. Additionally, and on a more personal note, I am concerned about the health of the residents of the city. Plastic bags are known to enter our food chain. Because of plastic bags and the lack of proper disposal of them, plastic debris in the ocean is eaten by plankton, fish, and other marine life, which in turn is consumed by us. We are essentially eating plastic bags. As one of the many people who consumes these things, I am disgusted when I discovered this fact, the fact that not only are plastic bags harmful to the world we live in, but also harmful to our bodies. This policy is essential to the better health of the residents in the city of Los Angeles, the city that you represent.
Thank you. Your left.
Hello, my name is Joelle Gamble. I'm the External Vice President for undergraduate students at UCLA, representing over 28,000 students. And I'm going to be honest. For most of the students at UCLA, local politics is a little boring, right? But when we heard about this ban on single-use plastic bags, students have shown overwhelming support. As UCLA students, as the future of this state and the future of this country, we recognize that there's a need to move towards a more sustainable local economy. Not only is this an issue of public health, but it's an economic issue as well. We can't continue to live with the status quo, to accept manufacturing of plastic bags just because that's the way things are. We need to move towards a more sustainable model. And I think that UCLA students recognize that, and you should as well. So I'd just like to let you know also that as a representative of student government, we have unanimously passed a resolution in favor of banning single-use plastic bags, which is an endorsement by the entire student body, essentially. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
I have a question. What do you say for those folks that are here regarding their jobs, that they'll lose their jobs? What do you say to them?
Well, I know that it's a difficult decision to make, and I think any positive policy, or any policy decision that is substantial, has trade-offs that are both positive and negative, and I know that it's a difficult decision for everyone here to make, and I would never wish that anyone loses their job. I only want a more sustainable local economy in which not only those people can have jobs, but more people can have jobs, because we're moving towards an economy that has a booming, for example, manufacturing of more sustainable bags, more reusable bags, more sustainable, environmentally friendly products. So, I mean, it's a difficult question, and I understand that there's a lot of trade-offs, but I think we have to think about the long-term effects and what it'll have on the city.
So what would you say to them? Is that what you say to them?
Yes.
I mean, the lady...
I essentially just did, actually, since I know that a lot of people in this room have expressed their concern about their jobs, and that is what I would say. Of course, I would listen to everything that everyone's saying. As a student, it's our responsibility to learn and understand and hear everyone's perspective, and I'm here to offer mine. And mine is that the trade-offs, although very, very serious, in the long term are positive.
Okay, thank you.
So both of you from CalPERG at USC?
Yes, sir.
And you are from the Office of External Affairs Vice President, right? You are not the Vice President.
We're not from CalPERG, but we've been working with CalPERG. We're from student government.
Is the External Affairs Vice President here?
I'm the External Affairs
Vice
President.
So you are also on UCSA?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, I was the External Affairs Vice President at Berkeley many years ago.
Oh, nice,
so we
nice.
automatically were on
We're still here.
UCSA is the Student government for UC system-wide, and that was a great organization that had impact in Sacramento.
Actually, John, who spoke, also sits on the board with me.
Oh, great. Congratulations.
Mr. Weezer here in boring local politics.
Thank you. Well, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Daniel Block, Angela Avansarial, Austin Rose, Skylar Borman. Welcome.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Daniel Block, and I'm speaking today on behalf of the UCLA students in support of the reusable bag policy. I'm originally from San Jose, one of the top 10 largest cities in the world, actually a city larger than San Francisco, and my hometown recently just passed a similar policy. Already, when I go back home to visit, I can see less bags in the gutters, the waterways are significantly cleaner, and even a lot of my friends that have been against the bag ban because it's going to cost them money and be inconvenient are noticing how much cleaner the city looks. I'm very, very proud today to sit here and use my hometown as an example of sustainability and its benefits. I hope Los Angeles does the right thing and passes the ban as well, so I could be proud of this city as well.
Thank you very much. Next speaker.
My name is Angela Arunasirakun, and I'm also a student at UCLA. I've also been a resident of Los Angeles my entire life. I currently live in your district, Chairperson Huizar, and I've been living there for the past 15 years. And today I'm here on behalf of UCLA students, but also at the same time, I'm here on behalf of young people. As you can tell, we do have a great group of young people who are here to talk about this issue because we recognize in the long term what effect this has on the environment, on public health. And we always talk about how we want to leave the world a better place for our children, and this is what we're demanding for. We are demanding for plastic bags to be banned because we recognize what impact they have on us, and so we want to live in a better future, and we really hope that you consider this policy very greatly, and that we are banning plastic bags. I would also like to see Los Angeles as a leader in the movement to ban paper bags also, but I can live right now with the current proposed policy that the CAO recommended.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hello, my name is Austin Rose. I'm a student at UCLA also. I don't want to waste too much more of your time, but I just wanted to come here today and express my support for the double ban because sustainability is very important to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. Aura Vasquez, Max Aram, Ferrang Zandi, and Dr. David Simahi. Correct me. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Max Aram. I'm here on behalf of Associate Student of CalStech Northridge. On February 21st, we passed a resolution to ban plastic bags on campus. And now we're working on the campaign. Sorry about that. So on a campaign to educate students. Sorry?
You got a tweet or a text or?
Yeah, no, just they're throwing my car away. Sorry.
Oh.
Yeah, and so we banned the plastic bag. Now we work on the campaign to educate students to use their reusable bags. We're going to distribute free reusable bags for them on Earth Day. We have in April 19th we have exhibition on campus, Earth Day. And we're going to give out 1,000 Chico bags, foldable Chico bags for the students. And each year we're going to give out 8,000 plastic bags, reusable bags to students, and promote the culture to ban the ban. And the young, can I talk on behalf of my friend? Who's going to, Frank Zandy.
Your invisible friend?
Yeah.
No. You could wrap up your thought, but if we would allow that for everyone, imagine that everyone would say they'd have a invisible friend. Yeah. You could finish up your thought, and we could go.
Yeah. So he wanted to talk about the Earth Day and the campaign that we're working on. So as the young crowd here, and also there is the similar resolutions with UC Santa Barbara and CalStech Northridge and other campuses would show that the young generation support that, and we would be grateful if you could encourage.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Generation as opposed to our generation?
younger generation.
Don't worry, I was just there in your generation 2 years ago, so it's...
Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Hello, my name is Dr. David Semhai. I too am a graduate of UCLA, and I represent the UCLA alumni. I oppose the plastic bag ban. I am a Vice President of Research and Development at Crown Poly. I would like to bring up a point that hasn't been brought up yet. Currently, 99% of reusable bags are made in China. I challenge each and every one of you to get your hands on a reusable bag and look inside and see where it's made. By banning plastic bags here in LA, you will directly be exporting the jobs of the people that I've talked today and exporting their jobs to China. Please do not export their jobs out of the U.S. Instead, please help us increase jobs in the U.S. and in LA by working with us, not against us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our last speaker is Chloe Grown. Don't know if that's an N or an M. Or neither.
Thank you very much. My name is Chloe Groom, and I'm an intern with the UCLA chapter of CalPIRG. If my fellow UCLA students could come up and give the rest of the petitions, you can see that over the last year, we've collected over 3,000 petitions from UCLA alone. Combined with our CalPIRG chapter at USC, this is over 7,000 petitions in favor of the plastic bag ban. It's time to move forward. There's overwhelming public support for this ban, and environmentally, economically, basically from every standpoint, it makes sense. So thank you so much for hearing me out. I think the move forward is clear. Thank you.
Sure. Ms. Telecon has a question for you.
Okay.
If UCLA got 3,000, does that mean that USC got 4,000?
Yes.
I didn't go to either school. I just, for the benefit of those who did, I thought I'd raise the question. But thank you.
Thank you very much.
Now, your response should have been that UCLA always does everything better. So, all right. Thank you. Where are the USC folks? They left. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you all for your public testimony. And I will now turn it over to Mr. Corrett since he's made the latest motion on this. But before we go on, I have one question which I just want to clarify on what exactly is who this would apply to. I did not find this on the CAO report. It may have been in the sanitation report or previous reports, but some language, I think it was in the sanitation report. Can somebody from the language I have is that it will be any store that has annual sales of $2 million or more and sells any edible goods. Any store that has at least 10,000 square feet of retail space, generates sales or use tax, and has a pharmacy, or any store that sells a limited line of goods that includes milk, bread, soda, and snack foods. Is that correct? And where is that language?
Yes, Karen Coca with the Bureau of Sanitation. Our original staff report that went to the Board of Public Works had a draft ordinance attached to it.
Okay.
That one does describe the type of stores that would be covered. It's similar to the County of Los Angeles language. Basically, the first two of the three that you have before you are the stores that are covered under AB 2449. These were stores that were required to have the plastic bag recycling program. In addition, it was found that really a lot of these smaller, what I would call convenience stores, that sell these milk, bread, snack foods, things like that, also hand out a very large number of the thinner plastic bags, the T-shirt bags as we call them. So they were included as well. But it does mirror the ordinances that have been adopted.
Okay, because what's before us today in this committee is the latest CAO report, and usually in committees we work off CAO reports or other reports, but typically CAO reports or CLA reports. And I just want to make sure that we're working out the report, but it doesn't describe in there what it applies to, and I just wanted to clarify that. So in the event we move the CAO report today,
Yes.
we know what we're moving forward, correct?
Yes, the number that's described in the CAO report is approximately 7,500 businesses within Los Angeles. That is the number that would be covered if the ban were effectuated on those particular businesses.
Okay, and in practical language, who is this? It's supermarkets, your convenience store, 7-Elevens?
Yes.
How about Home Depots?
No.
Targets?
Yes. If they
So what's the
have food.
difference? Plastic bag is a plastic bag. Why not Home Depot and Target? Yes.
Well, we certainly can look at that. It wasn't proposed for the initial phase because we wanted to mirror, as I said, some other programs as far as who is included and who's not. It basically includes everybody who sells groceries and food. If you go beyond that to the next line of retailers, that's another at least 20,000 businesses within the city. That includes other retail that doesn't sell food, Home Depot, J.C. Penney, other stores like that. If you go even farther beyond that and go to restaurants, there's at least 7,000 restaurants in the city
And restaurants
as
are
well.
not included in your...
We did not propose to include restaurants, mostly because of the nature of takeout food, and we don't
Okay.
want it spilling on people.
Oh, okay. And one of the amendments I was going to propose later is to come back with a 2-year report back and study on the impacts of this, economic, environmental, et cetera. So at that time, I suppose we could see if we want to expand it or not and see how it's working and
I think,
if we were to move this forward. Okay.
I think that we've been educated by what's happened in other communities, but we certainly should take another look at ours to see how it works in a city the size of Los Angeles.
Thank you. So I apologize. I want to turn this over to Mr. Koretz, who was a maker of the motion to have this brought back to committee, but I did want to clarify who exactly we're talking about since it wasn't in the CAO report, and that's what we're taking up today.
Yeah, actually, the CAO report makes reference to the September 16th
I see. Okay.
board report, which contains the ordinance language.
And has the ordinance language. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Weezer, could I ask a follow-up question on that? Does the EIR cover, the county EIR cover retail?
Good afternoon, Tim McWilliams. I jumped when I heard EIR, but I actually don't know the answer to that particular question. I don't know if staff knows the scope of the county's.
Maybe Ms. Alarcon has an answer to that question.
Mr. Alarcon or Ms. Alarcon?
Well, I don't know about our colleague, but I'm asking Ms. Alarcon.
Well, I have not had the opportunity to read the entire full LA County EAR because the language in the county ordinance it directly mirrors the language provided to this committee for consideration. The logical conclusion is that the EIR did not consider expansive application to larger retail stores.
So I wouldn't be adverse to looking at that at a future date, but I think we have to recognize we'd have to do more environmental work than anything else that's before us, which LA County, I believe, already covered in their EIR.
So, Mr. Koretz, it's your floor, and I'll pass it over to you and then move down the line.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is an issue that I've been looking at for a number of years since I was in the state legislature. Back then, a ban on plastic bags and even a fee on plastic bags was viewed as somewhat of a radical concept. When I first proposed it, I couldn't get it out of a committee headed by a strong environmentalist in any form. Now 43 different municipalities in California have passed some sort of restriction on plastic bags. And we could have been a leader on this back in 2008 when this was first proposed. Now we're at the point really where it's almost embarrassing that we discussed it in 2008, gave some direction, and have done nothing since then. It's time for Los Angeles to move forward and stop studying the issue. We have enough information. We know that plastic bags are a disaster for the environment. We know that plastic bag waste costs a lot for the city to clean up. I'm satisfied that the county ordinance was written in such a way that it It covers LA City, either if we do a ban on plastic and a charge for paper, or if we do the full ban. I think we should come up with an addendum to it and ask for public comment, but I think that's as far as we legally would need to go. As far as paper, I think we need to consider trees. We are cutting down the very thing that creates oxygen for us to create items that we use once, maybe twice, and throw away. That seems crazy to me. We use an estimated 400 million paper bags in the city of Los Angeles now. Only 21% of them are recycled. Manufacturing paper bags also cause greenhouse gas emissions, which is sort of double dipping negatively on the environment as far as I'm concerned. LA County has found that the charge is a disincentive on paper bag usage. So even though they've banned plastic bags, the charge alone has reduced the number of paper bags in usage rather than seeing it go up. So I think there's little chance that this has any negative impact on the environment by eliminating single-use plastic bags and, at a minimum, reducing the number of paper bags that are used. LA has tried in recent years to be a leader on environmental issues, and I think it's time we look at that and continue to follow that. What we do impacts the rest of the state and the rest of the country, and perhaps the rest of the world, and certainly I think that'll be true in the case of this legislation. Already, just because we proposed the further step of banning paper and plastic, we no longer will be the first city in the country to do it. We no longer will be the first city in the state to do it. Austin, Texas now bans paper and plastic, following the leadership we provided in proposing it. Carpinteria now bans paper and plastic, again following our leadership in proposing this issue. So we need to take a giant step towards sustainability. Once we actually do it, there's very little doubt, like what we've done with the ban on smoking in many public places years ago in Los Angeles and then California. It has impacted the entire world. I went to China a number of years ago, a very heavily smoking-oriented country, and I found that in government buildings, the signage said, "No smoking." Now, they didn't follow their own signage in many cases, but the fact that it was there, we had a huge impact in Los Angeles. We led the way, and we can do it here. I think it should be pointed out, China produces a huge number of plastic bags, but they have actually banned plastic bags in China. So they're happy to export the environmental damage that plastic litter causes, but they will not allow plastic bags, single-use plastic bags, to be used in China. I'd also point out on the job issue, if you look at the math on what was handed out, for example, at Crown Poly, there's 300 employees. A significant percentage don't work producing these single-use bags, and only 5% of their total production is single-use bags. So you're talking about, if they didn't find other marketing tools to fill in the gap, and if they didn't find a way to use the handful of people, put them in other occupations, they might lose a handful of jobs. But you're probably talking about the number of jobs that you could count on your hands. I mean, do the math. You're talking about a small industry and a small percentage of single-use bags that are actually sold in Los Angeles. Now, that alone, I think, is a significant factor. But if you actually look at the uses, I mean, I'm the last one to allow for layoffs in LA City, and I fight them hard. But you and I'd say, or maybe the three of us, I don't know. But I've never stood and said, if a job doesn't make sense anymore, we've got to keep that job. Laying people off when you have a service that you need is one thing. Keeping a position that doesn't really function anymore is something else. So if we were here 100 years ago, would we be saying we must not produce automobiles because buggies and buggy whips manufacturers won't have jobs anymore. Of course we wouldn't. This is an unsustainable occupation, the production of single-use bags. 10 years from now, 15 years from now, this industry will be gone or virtually gone. We have to recognize that complete waste of billions and billions of plastic bags is something that's not going to be sustainable. It's not going to continue. It's not a model that works. And really the same is true for paper bags. And the idea that we can only do the plastic and the 10 cent for paper, and then it will never go to the next step. Well, cities are already doing it. The cat's out of the bag, pardon the pun, but it's already happening. It's already happening. Now that a couple cities have done it, immediately hearing about what we're even thinking about, there's no doubt there will be dozens and then hundreds of cities that have banned paper and banned plastic. So let's provide the leadership. Let's do it now. I'd suggest that we take the LA County model. We do the additional addendum and take some public comment, and that we take a period of time to do education, then we take a period of time at a 10 cent a bag rate so that most people will stop using the bags entirely, as LA County's already finding out, and then we make the move to paper. I think we should make the move to paper at a date certain. We should have a requirement, as was discussed, to have a public hearing first. And if we have found that there's information to the contrary, that we're not ready to go forward, we could halt it at that time. But I think if we also want to provide some leadership to the rest of the country and the rest of the world, we want to take a stand and say we're going to ban paper as well as plastic by a certain date. So I might recommend that we take 6 months to do the education. Then in 6 months, we start to charge 10 cents for the plastic, and then, for the paper. And then in 1 year, we eliminate the paper as well. I think there'll be plenty of time for people to digest it. This will just be the way it's done, and I think it'll, as a practical matter, it will provide very little difficulty to anybody.
To be clear, in a year, charge 10 cents.
In 6 months, charge the 10 cents. After 6 months of being under the 10 cent process, then switch to a complete ban on paper and plastic.
Is that your final comments? Let's first take our comments from all our colleagues, and then we'll take action. Mr. Zine, you want to...
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The changing human behavior. We've changed human behavior. People wear seatbelts when they're in cars. We've changed human behavior. People aren't smoking as they used to. We've changed human behavior with the cell phone because you can't find a phone booth anymore. So we've changed human behavior. It takes a while for that to impact. And the hodgepodge process is L.A. bans, San Fernando doesn't. L.A. bans, Burbank doesn't. Glendale does. And we're on the border. L.A. is on the border of many cities, Culver City, Inglewood, etc. Something is consistent, and I support saving the environment, and we've destroyed a lot of it over the years, landfills, etc. So I understand what sanitation is doing. But the particulars, when I look at something that we want to impose, if I look at this bag, which is made in the USA, this is the Ralph's bag that you carry out with the little handle. Now, when you take the other bags that I have a sample of, you go to Home Goods, and you have the bag with the handle. And then you go to Baja Fresh, and you've got the bag with the handle. And then you are in the produce section, and you're buying your apples and your oranges and your lettuce, etc. I understand this bag's going to be okay, and this bag's going to be okay. And then you go to Macy's. Nope, before you go to Macy's, you go to Home Depot. Now, you tell me the difference between this bag from Home Depot and this bag from Ralph's. You're talking about a bag, a plastic bag, it's pollution, whichever way you look at it. And then you go to Macy's, and you make a big purchase. Now you get the big plastic bag, the granddaddy of plastic bags.
Mr. Zine, you are shopping far too much.
But if you're smart, you get the Councilman Dennis P. Zine bag. Now there you save money, and you can put all the bags in the Councilman Dennis P. bag, Councilman Dennis P. Zine bag, and here's all the bags. So when I look at going to the store with this bag, what we're talking about is a reusable bag. But the requirement that this bag have a maximum lifespan of 125 uses, which it probably would, capable of carrying a minimum of 22 pounds, that have a volume of at least 15 liter, machine washable, does not contain lead or any other dangerous chemicals, and if it's plastic, must be made of 2.25 millimeter plastic. So we're not basically saying this kind of cloth bag, but we're saying you can still have a plastic bag if it's 2.25 millimeters thick and it can hold 22 pounds. So if we want to ban the plastic bag, I think we should be serious about saying we want to ban a plastic bag, and I don't think people will be throwing the cloth bags away as they throw the plastic bags away. You have a plastic bag there, I believe, ma'am. That's a plastic bag? So now that probably can carry, and you'd use that and you reuse it and you reuse it. But what I'm looking at is something that's logical, that's reasonable, that you can reuse, and it's changing human behavior, because I carry these in my car, but oftentimes I run the store to get something, I forget it. And obviously that's the change in human behavior that we will remember. You know, you take your trash out on a certain day, or if you forget it, then it stays there another week. So you train yourself for that. So part of it is changing the human behavior to understand. And these, many groups are passing these out. In fact, my office passed them out to my constituents. There's 300,000 of these in the West San Fernando Valley, by the way. So when we look at implementation, the 10%, the 10 cent, we're going to tax that 10 cent according to the report. So the 10 cents goes to the market, the 10 cents goes to the city. Who does the 10 cents go to if they're going to do the paper bag?
10 cent goes to the retailer.
And then they're taxed on, according to the report, that 10 cents is taxed?
It's taxable, just as the product would be, just as reusable bags.
So we're going to charge them 10 cents for the bag, and we're going to tax the bag. Correct? It should be the cost of doing business, and I support the full phase-out. I support the full phase-out to say recyclable, period. But now the retailers are going to jack up the price to pay for the bag, and then they're going to charge 10 cents for the bag, and we're going to charge a tax on top of that. I have a problem with that. I think if we're going to phase it down, we phase it down. I understand what you're saying about give it a 6-month phase down. So, you know, phase it out, the plastic, phase out the paper, and then you'll have to have this. Now, how many of you shop at Costco? What kind of bags do you get at Costco?
None.
You don't get a bag at Costco. What you have is a box, if you're lucky, and a shopping cart that you carry to your car, and you put the stuff in your car. No one's ever squawked about it there. They don't have plastic, they don't have paper, they don't have any bags, and no one talks about not going there because they don't have it. So I think we've got to be realistic to say if we're going to phase it out, let's phase it out and be serious with it, and not pollute. But I try to understand why we could say the bag you put your produce in is okay, but the bag you're going to carry the produce out is not okay. Can you answer that?
I can answer that. The answer is that the produce bags are not mixed with other types of product, specifically meat. And if you have meat combined with vegetables, it could cause serious bacterial infections, especially if kids were to eat an apple, for example, that was tainted with blood from meat. And having been a box boy when I was a kid, I can tell you this stuff in the bags gets all mixed up, and that's why.
But so that bag's okay, though?
Yeah, because you don't mix it with other products.
Okay, and we used to use, before the plastic industry came around, you remember that famous movie, Mrs. Robinson, where they said, get into plastic? We used to use paper bag. We used to paper bag for everything, for the fruit, for the vegetables, and then it got away from that, and now it's all plastic. So I can understand the contamination aspect. So my focus on it is to be not competitive with the other communities around here, so someone won't go across to say, well, I can get a bag at free at Burbank or Glendale or Pasadena or whatever, but that we're serious with it, and if we want to clean up the environment, then we ban it and we ban it, and we're consistent with it. Another concern I have is, why do we need to have, what are these inspectors going to do for $400,000+ a year? What are we going to have them for?
There's no staffing involved anymore. We had put in this Enrique Saldivar, by the way, with the Bureau of Sanitation. We had put in an estimated of staffing in our earlier report to the board, and talking with the CAO, we're saying don't bring up the issue of staffing at this juncture. I think we got to understand what the full implementation and the policy is going to be to see what extent of enforcement we would have to do. It could be that we end up doing minimal enforcement and more on education, and we would need no inspection.
Well, see,
Sorry, if I could just interject. The staffing ratios that were included in the CAO's report allowed for one inspection on an annual basis for the entire 7,500 establishments that would be impacted by the ordinance, allowing for a 20-minute inspection. So it's essentially a proactive enforcement. We're regularly going out and checking on each of these stores at least once a year. There's also an assumption that there's going to be a certain percentage of those 7,500 that would be found in violation, which would then trigger a second a visit, and then maybe also a third visit. What we at the Bureau of Sanitation and the Board of Public Works have thought through is that in instances like this, where there is such a significant public outcry for compliance with this type of ordinance, that there would be media attention. Or if there was a local Ralph's in your community, there would be community members calling your office saying, the Ralph's on so-and-so on DeSoto is in violation, and, maybe Channel 7 goes out there and looks. So we can respond to those types of concerns on a reactive basis as opposed to a proactive basis. Moving forward, if there are available resources, we could build a larger enforcement mechanism, but at the outset of the program, I think it makes more sense for us to sort of react to those types of concerns as opposed to doing the proactive one visit every year for 7,500.
Well, here's my concern about that. We have a huge budget problem. And the mayor's talking about laying off people, which troubles me because I don't want to see anybody lose their job. When we did the smoking ban, and the smoking ban's expanded, we didn't add any personnel to the fire department. What we said is if there's a violation, the fire department will go out there and they'll do the inspection, which I think we should do the same thing. Ralph's, Vaughn's, Albertsons, those stores are not going to violate. They will comply. All those stores will comply. Pardon me? No, she talked about do the inspections.
No, so what was analyzed fiscally in the CAO's report was this suggestion of having these once-a-year inspections. What we are now saying and agreeing to is that is not necessary to move forward with this program, that we can respond and react to, if there is an outcry of concerns, if we get a call saying, there is a violation occurring at this location, we can respond to that,
so
which would be less labor-intensive, which would require less resources.
So we're not going to hire the personnel, so what you're talking about, the $400,000+.
Right, we're not actually making any recommendations for staffing, it's just providing a snapshot of what inspections would look like based on a 40% default.
Mr. Zine, if I could add to that.
Go ahead.
I think it's very similar to the proposed need for the smoking police when we all did the various cities did their smoking bans in restaurants. It was completely self-enforcing. It was. When people were violating it, customers would complain to the restaurant owners, and they would stop people from smoking. Right. And the 2 or 3 restaurants in the whole city of Los Angeles that kept doing it, a lot of people knew which ones they were, and eventually they were pressured, and they stopped doing it too. I think the chance that we need any kind of money for enforcement on this is virtually nil.
Okay, that's exactly where I'm going with that.
And I wouldn't propose a penny for enforcement.
I'm only going by what the report says. Yeah. So, when we look at the aspect of kicking this in, since obviously we're at the tail end versus innovative city that's brought around since other cities have done it, I support that we move forward with it, that we make it very clear. And if you want to do the 6-month, then you phase out the bags. People will adjust. They'll adapt. They'll carry these in their car, and they'll learn that when they go shopping, they'll take it with them. I mean, it's the bottom line. It's going to change human behavior, as we've done with other prospects of life. And the 10 cents one way or another, but the stores will benefit from that. The paper industry, which was basically phased out because of the plastic industry. I just think we need to do is change the culture. The culture is very simple. We're polluting the environment. We're destroying the environment, whether it be this or styrofoam cups or whatever the case may be. And if you carry something like this and you go do your shopping, you put it in the shopping cart, you put it in here, you put it in your car, you carry it in your home, and you put it away, and everybody's happy, and we've saved the planet. At least that's what we're trying to do. So thank you for SC, UCLA, and all those folks that are here. Spend your day here since we've been here since 2 o'clock. It's a serious topic, and we take serious consideration before we put something into place. And those folks about the jobs, hopefully there can be some adapting to help you so you don't end up getting unemployed, and we don't want to see that happen. Thank you.
Very much.
I will support this.
Thank you. Ms. Delacroix, did you bring your bags too?
Well, no, but I want to be as brief as I can because I know that Mr. Zine has to get to a sale at Urban Outfitters. And
give me the gift card.
These decisions are the most difficult that elected officials have to make, and it's difficult because we are being pulled by the future, and yet we are entrenched in the past, and the transitioning process. Really, what we're doing is not trying to make a decision about whether we believe the environment is good or the business is bad. That is not the issue. The issue is at what speed do we want to transition our society to a better place, and how much better do we want to be? And so, in my experience over the years, and in all of our experience, quite frankly, we've watched those transitions occur. You mentioned the speed belts, the safety belts. You know, as a former traffic officer, that the first speed belts we had were very mild in terms of their safety, the safety they provided compared to the seat belts that we have today. You know that the tobacco cessation programs are far better today. The law enforcement elements in tobacco are far better today than they were 20 years ago. So I first of all want to commend Councilman Huizar. This issue has been in this committee for 6 years because of a failure to recognize the direction that our future is going, and because of the controversial nature of it and all the lobbying efforts that abound as a result of that controversy. So I first want to commend Councilman Huizar for saying, hey, stop, let's make a decision. And that is leadership.
Thank you, sir.
And as leadership does, when a leadership decision is made, it's going to upset people. And if it's a strong leadership position, it's going to anger a lot of people because they're not accustomed to it. And that's exactly what we have before us today. The question is not whether or not we're going to do something with the ban. I've heard enough to know that we are going to do something. The question is, what are we going to do, and how quickly are we going to transition? I also want to say that what makes this very difficult for me personally is in Sacramento, when I was in the legislature, I was 100% voter with the Sierra Club, strong environmental track record. My first action as a city councilman was to close the last city public landfill. And yet I was also chair of the Labor Committee and was a champion of creating jobs in California, introduced the largest infrastructure development program under Gray Davis administration. I carried the bill to create jobs in the state. And we know that when we make these changes, it does affect our workforce. So I think there are some very strong facts, statistics, and information and social issues that happen when we take these kinds of actions. The fact of the matter is, yes, there is an industry that's going to be affected. Workers will be negatively impacted for no fault of their own. And we should not be insensitive to that reality. If anything, we should do things to help them in this transition. The federal government recognizes in its WARN program that when a company is going to lay off workers, they must notify the workers well in advance. I think it's 90 days or even 6 months in some cases of those layoffs when they're large numbers. I wish that we could incorporate some concepts in this package that would dedicate some of the money to assist the workers as they are forced to transition into other jobs. But having said that, I have looked at the information and recognized, and frankly, I went to Crown Poly last night at about this time, and met with the manager and the workers, machine by machine. And I have to tell you, it's a very clean operation. The workers are obviously very happy. They love their jobs. They don't appear to be pressured. And believe me, I went in several different capacities. Many of them started off as very unskilled labor and are now managing machines that cost millions of dollars. And they are moving forward with their lives. And so this is personally a very difficult decision for me, particularly after having met the people, seen the faces, seen them at the work site, and seen the good benefits package that they have, reasonable benefits package by any means, but compared to some of the other companies we've dealt with, very good benefits package. So I wish that we could do something to assist there. One of the problems with that reality is that none of these companies are based in the city of Los Angeles directly. Now, nevertheless, they do impact the regional market, and they will compete with workers in our community who are trying to find jobs. And in fact, some of them do live in Los Angeles. So this is a very difficult process. Having said that, I think we do have to transition. I think we do have to move us to a better place and demonstrate the kind of leadership that we should never avoid as elected officials. That's why we get elected. We don't get elected to manage. We have plenty of good managers here. We get elected to lead, and that means making new policy, new decisions, changing our direction sometimes in the face of fire. And in this case, this has been a very troubling reality for 6 years, going back and forth. It doesn't get any better, does it? If you make a decision quickly, it doesn't get any better if you wait 6 years, typically. My experience is that whatever we do in the first go-round, it shouldn't be the last thing we do. We should be mindful that that we should seek continuous improvement in this process in all the regards mentioned. I want to share with you, particularly Paul and Dennis and Mr. Weezer, I want to share with you a story. When I was first a council member, there was a proposal by the environmental community to ban gas-powered leaf blowers. A council member took on that cry, introduced a motion to ban gas-powered leaf blowers. At the same time, when the issue came forward, the industry that developed the gas-powered leaf blowers, as well as the gardeners who were affected by the jobs, came to me and asked if we could find an incremental approach, a transitional approach that would get us to effectively ban leaf blowers, but not do it in such a short period of time. They had agreed, the people that manufactured the gas-powered leaf blowers and the gardeners agreed that over a 5-year period, they would get to a complete ban. And I would point out that the proposal that went to council was a proposal to ban gas-powered leaf blowers, but it exempted city use of gas-powered leaf blowers, and it had other exemptions, and it was a one-time thing, and it was permanent. The long story short was the city council did not choose my model, which would have been an increased ban over a period of 5 years, and at the end of the day, it would be a more complete ban than the one that was proposed by the council member. They approved that council member's proposal. Subsequent to that, it was shot down by the Supreme Court, and we have never banned any gas-powered leaf blowers in the city of Los Angeles. To move forward too quickly could cause us more damage than good. In fact, in the case of gas-powered leaf blowers, there was no leadership whatsoever to protect anybody, because nobody was protected by what occurred. And so, while we recognize that we can't do anything perfectly the first time, that's not necessarily a requirement. But the requirement is to always try to do better. And so, we should have done this 6 years ago. Even if it was a weak model, even if we made some mistakes, by now we could have improved on those mistakes. So I would say to the department, I'm very proud that the department took a very staunch and aggressive, very extreme position to ban plastic bags and paper bags. You showed tremendous leadership in that regard. But as elected officials, we recognize that we can get to the same place over a period of time without causing dramatic change too rapidly on our society. So I agree with Mr. Koretz that it's reasonable to take time to do the education. I believe that the general public does use these bags. By the way, I never throw these bags away unless they're filled with trash. I mean, I don't throw them in the gutter. I don't throw them, and I've seen them in the gutter. I've seen them at the beach. I've seen them in all the places. I've seen them at the park with diapers in them, which is the worst. I hate that. But I put them in the trash can, and so if I'm not going to have these anymore, then I'll put them in a plastic bag and put them in the trash anyway. So I think a lot of the facts that we talk, all of the stories, there's a little bit of extremity on both sides of the argument. So we have to try to sort all that out and come up with a policy that is reasonable, that moves us forward, and at the same time does not use hyperbole in getting us to where we need to go. So I agree that we need the time for education. I think we should strongly consider using the county's EIR as part of our process and doing the public hearings that would help us do the educational process, and eventually I would have a question about whether we can impose a 10-cent ban, and whether if we went and shifted to put a 10-cent cost on the paper bags and then shifted to a ban, whether that would trigger the need for another EIR or an amended EIR or something. But I think from a policy perspective that sounds reasonable. And so if that's the case, I want to. I just hope that we don't do this cavalierly. We don't do this with arrogance. We do this with an understanding that when we make decisions, sometimes it has negative impacts on people's lives, and we feel for them. Nevertheless, in the long run, we should always lean towards moving forward, and not entrench ourselves so much in the past that we take away opportunities for people in the future. Clearly, the next generation, the young folks, want us to go in this direction, and I think we owe it to them to give them a future they want. And so, because of that, I agree with the report. Again, I have to commend Councilmember Weezar for taking this issue on in a matter of a few months when this thing was bouncing around for 6 years. As Councilman Garcetti often says, we shouldn't let the perfect get in the way of the good. And in this case, it maybe not be a perfect proposal, but it's good enough, and we'll continue to work on it to make it more perfect.
I have one.
Mr. Zane.
One for the Department of Sanitation. While we do this educational outreach, is there a way, and I know that you folks have these, that we can do educational outreach and pass these out to the folks so that we'll be able to have distribution citywide, so when they do go to the market, hopefully they won't forget it in their car, save them the 10 cents for the paper bag. So while we educate, we can still spread that message. And I don't know how big the bags are, but I hope they meet the qualifications as prescribed that we have on the ordinance. But if we can get that, obviously educate, help, take this to the market, save 10 cents, do your marketing. And I think that also sends out a strong message, because you can buy them at the market. They're like $1.50, $2. we could save the consumers that with some of the outreach that you have in the community, it would be great.
We will do that, Councilman.
Great. Thank you
As
very
part of our
much.
promotion.
And with that, let me,
Mr. Chair, if I
Yes,
could make a couple
our
of
city
comments.
attorney.
Thank you. Tim McWilliams, Deputy City Attorney. If I could, just based on what I've heard, I'd like to frame where I think we're at legally from a CEQA perspective, which is my bailiwick, if you will. We're here today defining the project, defining a policy, if you will, that will then be studied by staff. So CEQA would require that before actually implementing the policy by way of ordinance, that your decision to do that be informed by the environmental analysis that has yet to be done. So I just want to clarify that for a court reading this record or someone else reading this, that we're clear that we're not committing ourselves legally to this course of action, only that now that's going to be studied. And Councilmember Koretz mentioned addendum. I don't want to quibble about labels, but what I think what you've described, the process, is certainly exists under CEQA for taking what the counties has done in their EIR as a basis for what we're doing, and then augment that to the extent necessary, and then circulate that for public comments. So the ultimate product will, in fact, be an EIR that we will certify.
Thank you very much. Well, with that, let me say that I agree with Mr. Koretz's approach, which is a phase out on the paper bags, because if we just throw this out there, I'm concerned about what we will do to low-income communities that have to pay a higher charge for paper bags, and eventually it'll allow them, if we do that, we would disincentivize them to use paper bags. They don't want to pay the higher fee, but eventually we will get to a complete ban on paper bags, and I think that's the correct approach. So if I could entertain a motion from Mr. Koretz, as he stated, which was to approve the CAO report with a fee on paper bags would be phased in 6 months, within 6 months for aggressive public education, with the intent of eventual ban of paper bags within 1 year. That's an amendment, as stated by Mr. Koretz. And secondly, if I could add another amendment to have a 2-year report back from the Bureau of Sanitation on the implementation of this policy, and to evaluate the program and make any recommendations for improvement or adjustments.
Second.
And that's a second by Mr. Zine and Mr. Alarcon and
you.
And me. I can't second, can I? There's,
Unanimous.
So with that, any and you clear on the direction on the first one, 6 months phase-in of the 10 cents charge for paper bags, and after the implementation of the full policy. So that means we're doing a 6-month for all the stores and everyone to finish their plastic bags. It's after that 6 months.
Right. So upon the date of enactment, 6-month period at which time we are going to focus on outreach, but the fee will not be implemented. After that 6-month time frame, there will be a following 6-month time frame where the 10-cent fee will apply. Following that, upon 1 year date of enactment of the ordinance, the full ban on paper will apply. And just for clarity, there was conversation about the definition of a store. Is there concurrence that the definition should mirror what is reflected in the draft ordinance?
Yes, and we're adopting the CAR report. There's reference to that in the CAR report, so we will adopt that.
And along those lines, the education that the Department of Sanitation is responsible for distribution citywide before that 10-cent imposition on the paper goes in.
Yeah.
Plastic is immediate, right? Upon adoption, enactment, the ban on plastic would be immediate.
Yeah.
Right?
Upon passage of the ordinance.
Yes, so upon adoption of the
Upon
ordinance,
adoption,
it would be a ban on plastic, 6-month time frame, 6-month time frame, and 1 year.
So just to clarify, it's policy, EIR, ordinance, and then ban on plastic immediate, and then the phase out on paper.
6 months, sir.
6 months.
Yeah.
So the market, the affected businesses should be notified approximately when that date's going to kick in, so they don't order large quantities when they know they're not going to be able to.
Yes, but I think to Tim McWilliams' point, the complete EIR process has to be completed before the ordinance can in fact be adopted, which will then trigger the timeframes that are included in your motion.
So approximately how long till the markets cannot use plastic?
Well, the EIR is projected to take anywhere between 6 to 9 months. There may be ways that we could try and expedite that, depending on whether or not we can utilize the county's existing EIR. So there should be in and around 9 months.
So somehow we should send from the commission a notice to the affected markets?
Councilman, could I comment on that? I think we want to be careful that we're not deciding today what we're going to do before the environmental analysis is done. So I would just caution you to not look as though we predetermine exactly what we're going to do regardless of what the environmental analysis
No,
says.
so my concern is that they purchase these products in bulk months ahead of time, and they spend thousands of dollars on these products, on the plastic bags. What I'm trying to do is give them a notification that, maybe you want to phase down
It
and
can
not
be,
put another order.
it can be an advisory, Councilman, so it's not any, it's just an advisory, so that they're aware that this policy is under consideration that could lead to an ordinance which will then be a requirement.
And I think
We can do that.
Was that not the intent for the six-month moratorium on the fee, so as to allow for the use of the remaining stock of?
That's on the plastic bags. On the plastic bags, we have the large stores and small stores are treated differently there as to when that applies to them, right?
Right.
So they're already, they're protected there already.
Yeah, there's a 6-month phase-in for the 5,500 businesses.
That's right. So then, and then the paper bag that's a different 6 months. But there's already protections in there, Mr.
I just don't
Zhang,
want to
so-
see them
for that,
buy large
for
quantities of
supply issues.
They have 6 months anyways.
Yeah.
Can I ask, is the city attorney, is the proposal going forward in the EIR as a draft ordinance, or is it an ordinance, or we vote on the ordinance after the EIR process, but we're not providing a draft ordinance, or how does that work?
Well, it's a good question. The direction today needs to be specific enough so that staff knows what to study. We don't have to have the final ordinance, but the components need to be articulated so that we know, so the staff knows what to study.
So the way that Mr. Koretz has presented it, we fully understand, and I'm stating for the record that I fully understand that this is a proposal that is being submitted to the public to weigh in on, and but if they, as to whether they agree or do not agree, and the extent to which they agree, and suggested changes or whatever, they would have the opportunity to do all that during the EIR process.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Final point is, after the action here today, where do we go from here? This goes to full council?
Yes.
This goes to full council a couple of weeks or so?
We'll work with your office and President's office to figure out the scheduling for that.
Okay, and then that's going to take, we do environmental review, draft the ordinance, no, we do environmental review, then draft the ordinance, and then that comes back to this committee.
Yeah.
Well, you can direct the drafting of the ordinance whenever you feel it's appropriate.
Okay.
But the adoption would come after the environmental.
The direction by full council is to adopt the parameters of the program so that we can conduct our environmental review.
So this goes to full council, then the big timing issues, the environmental review, that comes back, all of that comes back to this committee.
Yes.
Yeah.
The ordinance and the environmental review and the decision to be, okay.
Mr. Chair, if I could just
Yes, Mr. Perez.
clarify one more time. When we say the EIR process, we're not necessarily saying that we need a full EIR from start to end.
I think the reference was being made to what I would call the truncated process, where we're piggybacking on what the county did and not redoing their work and just augmenting that to the extent we think is necessary to cover exactly what we're doing. And then we put whatever augmented analysis we come up with, if any, with the county's EIR, and then we call that our EIR.
And we think that would still take as much as 9 months?
Well, the 9 months wasn't my estimate, but I think...
9 months was an outer estimate if we had to do a complete standalone EIR. If we are able to compress that by the truncated process, then that mine is shorter.
Okay, so maybe, 4 months, 6 months? Do we have any sense?
Yes.
4 to 6 months, maybe?
Yeah. In the board report, it envisioned a full EIR process, which was 6 to 9 months. But if we are able to utilize some of the aspects of the county's EIR, that would reduce the time frame. So guesstimating between 4 to 6 months.
Great. Thank you.
So with no objection, we'll order that. And thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for your hard work on this. Thank you, Mr. Peretz, for moving this forward. We have Dr. Tom Williams, public comment. Is he still here? Dr. Tom Williams, are you still here? No? Okay.
Let me go find him.
Meeting adjourned.
Take your time.
What?